What the hell happened? I was just standing, minding my own business. What in the world happened? Oh boy. Okay. Alrighty, I was about wrapped up too, so that's fine. Yeah, okay. Boop. All that's set there. I got the document up. Perfect. All right. We all know how this goes.
Under the same.
Nope.
Under the same.
Nope. Start there. Start there, you little shit. Okay, 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 okay. Ba-ba, ba-ba-ba. Howdy, Xavier. Good to see you. All right. First draft of Astrologers is, in fact, complete. So that ended up clocking in at about 24 pages. I think it might also be close to being 23. I cannot remember. Cannot remember where it stopped. Yeah, it's more like 23 pages. So I didn't end up adding a lot more, but I was able to condense and pare down and keep things. I think it's for first draft, it's going to be decently tight. We'll see if I'm missing anything, if I'm forgetting, if there's any stuff that like really needs some workshopping there. But I think it might be one of my better first drafts, but it's just so long and there's just so much material to go through. I can definitely see this being a rough one, so fair warning right off the bat. Fair warning. Also, yes, I know, dog. I know. So we're gonna do that. And then afterward, we'll switch gears and I'll start working on doing a Bloodborne timeline. I think I mentioned it the other day, but if not, someone had actually asked me stuff about Bloodborne and timelines and stuff like that. And I said, oh yeah, you know, I've been thinking about doing a timeline thing as well. So while I was clarifying, I was like, you know, may as well do that as a write-up because, you know, Bloodborne's timeline is relatively straightforward. So I don't think it'll be that difficult for me to write on it. I was just reading your draft. You mentioned the lighting for the Riverwells and Shifra. Also, the Staff of Loss is a Kari Glintblade staff with the gem removed. Kari Glintblade staff? I remember it being simpler than that, but I could be crazy. I don't remember. Wasn't Kari Glintblade... No, it's over here, right? Because it's its own thing. Right? Am I crazy? I could have swore. Yeah, aren't these their own weapons? Oh God. Now I'm feeling like I'm taking the crazy pills here. Have I just not looked at this? Oh no, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. It's under. Okay, that's why. I'm like, it's under bows and stuff. I forget. I thought it was its own separate thing. Staff of Loss. Uh-huh. Huh. Yeah, you can definitely see the resemblance. It even has the band. Huh. Oh, we can put you away. That's something to note for the future. Oh no, this is meteorite staff. Took wrong one. Anyway, that's actually something I can include in Karia. I recently was doing an update for Celia stuff, so I can include that in there. That's good to do. All right. Alrighty. There we go. Because that's actually worth noting. I wonder if it had anything to do with the cut content stuff, because from what I remember, Staff of Loss was originally supposed to be, it was for Celian assassins who were targeting Tarnished. I remember looking at the 1.0 tech stuff for that. Because for some reason, staves and stuff had radically different tech still in, whereas most of the final game weapons seems like those were already like given their final design. So again, it's always fascinating seeing this what gets kind of left in to be done with the day one patch, right? It's always funny, that type of stuff. But anyway, point is that I'm kind of curious if somehow there was some plot line there, with the idea being that like, or maybe they had an idea that Carians would be even more, because there's already like a lot of Carian influence here, of course, in Celia. Yeah, just a lot to think about. Anyway, okay, so that's actually really cool. Thanks, Xavier. As for your question about the Shifra river lighting, the lighting is mentioned. In fact, I recently cleaned this up because I accidentally mentioned it twice in 2 different places. But the actual mention of the lighting is in Prince of Death. I talk about how the Shifra River regular well, and yeah, both Shifra and Ainsel regular wells, the non-deep wells, have non-magic lighting there, and I connect it to the expeditions by you know, the fundamentalists, plus, as we also learned, the Fallen Hawks and all that. So, you know, it all comes together. Yeah, I saw that. You could see in the screenshots I show, but I just focus on the lighting because it's not just those places. It's also Lake of Rot. We have to keep in mind Lake of Rot entrance, the sluice gate there also has that. So again, it's just a general trend they're showcasing of the idea of like the main people who have been recently accessing those areas. Yeah, so it's not going to be mentioned there because I don't think it's connected. Yeah, and I mentioned the Caria Manor lighting. I'm pretty sure in Caria, because I recall pointing out how, like, you know, they're so magic focused. They have that versus even the Academy, who has, of course, standard lighting, right? And it's always so fascinating because then you have like the blue magic lighting in places like the Cliff Bottom Catacombs, you know. Anyway, point is, I have we've got a draft to listen to. I've got screenshots I want to take because I've been adding more reference images and stuff with some of these updates and things. So gonna try to work on that right away. And then you guys, if you guys notice or spy anything, as always, make more comments, suggestions, etc. Always appreciated. But then again, just know that once we're done with my screenshot side of things in the Elden Ring and we finish listening to this draft, I'm gonna be working on some BB. So again, maybe a little more dull after that.
Under the same sky, everyone under the sun has looked up to see the stars at one point or another. For as long as humans have lived in the lands between, there are sure to have been individuals fascinated by those mysterious lights shining bright in the sky. Even when secluded to their own primitive tribes, their kind shared a curiosity about the cosmos in sight yet out of reach. And so, they became the first astrologers. Evidence for these primitive stargazers comes from the hemicycliums they have left behind. The devices are clearly based on ancient Greek and Roman sundials, but we always find starlight shards at their base, as if the celestial lights were called to fall upon the spot. We can thereby infer that the hemicyclium is intended to function more like an astrolabe, the rugged stone construction affirming it to be a tool used since ancient times. This explains its appearance on random cliff edges of the different lands with unobstructed view of the sky, tribesmen in the remote countryside each studying the stars' movements and how to direct them into their grasp. That said, it wasn't as if every primitive took up the hobby of stargazing. The description for the stargazer's heirloom emphasizes how its subject walks whilst pursuing the stars at night, seeming to travel around following their paths and searching for new ones. Although early humans may have been nomadic, traveling at nighttime was less than ideal, especially for large caravans. More than likely, the various hemicycliums we see on random precipices were the work of stray astrologers, setting out on their own to investigate the innumerable flowing lights. As the tribes moved around before finally settling, they explored even farther, some maybe even leaving the tribe entirely to chase astrology all on their own. It was their heart's desire to follow the heavenly bodies, even if that meant wandering the earth. Of course, there is only so much a single primitive can learn on his or her own, and stargazing ideally wants higher ground for a closer look. Thus, gradually, did every independent stargazer gravitate toward the tallest mountains visible from anywhere in the lands between. Naturally, these disparate migrants to up north would eventually come together to form a community, a village established in the middle of those mountaintops. From that home base at the central summit, the ancient astrologers were free to roam the surrounding peaks and valleys, setting up new hemicycliums or even inventing new tools like telescopes. On that front, we can find a bird's-eye telescope in the vicinity, the curious tool allowing us to view the surroundings high above the glass we peer through. With their collective minds synergizing, the human stargazers truly saw their start as a distinct identity, the new tribe making the most out of this frigid land to uncover all the cosmos secrets. This invariably brought them in contact with the fire giants. The Sword of Night and Flame is a prized treasure of Caria Manor, the blade requiring both faith and intelligence to unleash the fire and magic it contains. Its description notes how the astrologers and giants in the distant mountains were neighbors, implying a connection with the weapon's design. One possibility is that it is the product of a collaborative effort between the two, each party contributing their own power and expertise to its creation. However, the sword's ornate and intricate design doesn't suit either the crude giants or a simple village, fitting more with the royals who own it. Indeed, in an earlier iteration of the text, the sword was expressly forged to celebrate the Carian queen's marriage to Radagon, the giant's flame symbolizing his red hair. If nothing else, it shows that From Software had considered the royalty creating a flame sorcery sword despite their separation from the mountaintops. And regardless, this makes the sword proof of a close and cordial relationship between astrologers and giants. But more than harmony with the natives, the Sword of Night and Flame allude to astrologers' key role in sorcery related to the night sky. The weapon describes them as the predecessors to sorcerers in its text, which causes fans confusion since the description to the astrologer set claims that they are the descendants. However, this ignores the context. The sword specifically refers to the astrologers native to the mountaintops. The set refers to stargazers from outside the lands between, those robes serving as our starting equipment should we choose an astrologer background. In other words, we as an astrologer trace our practice to sorcerers from the lands between, who trace their practice to astrologers on the mountaintops. At the same time, we ourselves are a sorcerer, which wasn't always the case for stargazers in the mountains. Put simply, every glintstone sorcerer is also an astrologer, but not every astrologer is necessarily a glintstone sorcerer. That kind of sorcery requires stargazing by necessity, so it was only through stargazing that humans could even formulate a rational study of magic. In fact, we know the exact origins of these magic arts thanks to founding Reign of Stars. The legendary sorcery was discovered by a stargazer of old, trying to glimpse the primeval current. Being one of the most demanding sorceries to perform in terms of intelligence, the genius and effort behind this feat cannot be understated. Nonetheless, it was only natural for humans studying the stars' movements to trace their flow back to its source. If one wants to harness the heavenly bodies, one need control the direction of their point of origin. Every novice astrologer seems to understand this, hence the universal starlight landing at hemicycleons. And so, it was just a question of finding the mechanism with which to manipulate all the stars. That proved to not be easy, but the oldest primeval sorcery storage in heretical rise indicates that it was accomplished atop those northernmost mountains where the tower is located, before any of the modern magic sigils were used for glintstone sorcery. The flow of the stars this astrologer visualized became a reality, and glintstone fell upon the land in a downpour. This may have only been a brief, once-in-a-lifetime success for the brilliant stargazer in question. Still, the star's amber changed the game for their kind. The vestiges of astral life now on Earth, anyone could harvest a crystal and stick it on a stick of wood to create a magic catalyst. With enough focus, the owner could then draw out a fragment of that life force and manipulate the power as they see fit. Founding Reign of Stars was the first to receive this treatment, the instructions we acquire teaching us to conjure miniature stars that rise to form a nebula, a literal star cloud, and subsequently rain down upon targets below. However, even less intelligent individuals could manifest at least a small stone to crudely throw at a target, which is why glintstone pebble is considered the starting point for research into sorcery. From there, it was a matter of cultivating their knowledge and willpower, generating larger and larger stones until they did form true stars. Stargazers could finally observe their interest closer than ever. None were going to pass on this opportunity. And so, the study of the living stars turned astrologers into glintstone sorcerers. By extension, they were also the first primeval sorcerers. This did not end with one spell. Selin implies that the primeval current was the original reason for studying crystallized astral life. Emer likewise insinuates that to be a glintstone sorcerer requires equal investment in humans, considering both stardust to love. The two sorcerers each know humanity to be among the spawns of the primeval current, Selin and primeval sorcerers like her wanting to become proper star children. Taken together, it would seem that early glintstone sorcerers were the first to make this discovery and aim to become what they studied. Nowhere is this better indicated than in the primal glintstone blade kept at the stargazer's village, the old dagger fashioned with amber intended to replace a sorcerer's heart and soul, bringing man one step closer to becoming living stone. This leaves no doubt that the mountaintop astrologers were concerned with astral metamorphosis. The end goal was always to join the stars in the primeval current. However, the method the stargazers devised was to embed the primal glintstone into the physical heart, the serrated design likely intended to help secure the blade in place similar to a barbed arrowhead. The aim was probably for the soul in the heart to be absorbed into the glintstone shortly after the stabbing, but slicing open an organ holds obvious risks. As a simple talisman, the blade reduces the focus required to cast spells, but at the cost of maximum HP. In other words, gaining a mind of stone means making one more vulnerable to death. The bloodstains on the blade we acquire speaks to the failure of this experiment, the subject dying from the wound. The dark hair tied around the bloody talisman in its menu graphic may well belong to the deceased, serving as a sort of memorial. This explains why the uncleaned blade has been stored away, the villagers apparently abandoning this avenue. Only so many failures you can risk before the population can no longer support the village. Even if every subject was willing, the old sorcerers were ultimately forced to explore alternative solutions. Spread your seeds. When the glintstone first rained down, it wasn't concentrated in one particular area. Rather, we can find signs of starfall all across the lands between. In every region exist tunnels dug to gigantic meteors embedded deep beneath the earth, the surrounding bedrock mined for the smithing stone used for statues or upgrading weaponry. By gradually folding more and higher quality smithing stones into the wood, stone, or metal, the armament itself becomes empowered. We can thus presume such potent rocks to be a byproduct of the meteoric impact, cosmic residue infused into the land. The resulting transformation creates a malleable material with a degree of flexibility and essence, the nature of smithing stone itself changing depending on environment. Simultaneously, the generic stone's power follows proximity to the mountaintops, mere shards mined in lands farthest from the peak and gradually increasing to whole and larger hard stones in neighboring lands like Liurnia and Caelid. If the eye of the starry storm lie where it was cast, then it is only natural for the concentration of power to dissipate over distance. This pattern corresponds with the star's actual amber. Many of those same regions also include crystal tunnels and caves replete with glintstone. The areas least affected lie in Lingrave and the Weeping Peninsula, miners unearthing only a few scraps. Conversely, Caelid showcases huge deposits, crystals likely lacing large part of the region. Although the land is now marred by scarlet rot, Dragon Barrow Cave has remained untouched, with its natural foliage including crystal cave moss and crystal buds. Indeed, these young tree sprouts had the misfortune to crystallize before they could grow large, presumably internalizing too much of the star's power while trying to absorb nutrients. They should therefore mark lands replete with glintstone, Caelid but one example. The increased quality of the mines reinforces the indication, Gale tunnels straddling the border between Caelid and Lingrave already yielding a fair number of large scraps. It is no surprise, then, to find so many crystals in the deepest reaches of the rotted area.
Yes?
But while crystal buds or moss also appear in Liurnia, Altus, Gelmir, and the mountaintops, only the latter lacks any crystal tunnel. Perhaps the stargazers already harvested the land for all its natural glintstone long ago. Spiracolor Cave is similarly untouched by the icy cold draping the mountains, and among its greenery hides more crystal cave moss, so there is no denying that the glintstone existed. However, the only crystal left to find on the mountaintops is ice crystal, which kills the tree buds all the same. Granted, the ice crystal bud still possesses magic power, used to craft cold bone arrows, which partially inflict magic damage. The only other land where the presence of crystal isn't obvious is Fair Missoula, though that may be more because we have merely a fraction left to explore in the sky. Overall, the mountaintop seems to have become most depleted of its major reserves outside smithing stone. And because of that lower quantity, sorcerers of the village became incentivized to look beyond the polar north for the advancement of their craft. Crystallians are a form of inorganic life, solid and rigid crystal taking the shape of a man and operating as such. This makes them initially hardy but brittle once cracked, soon shattering to pieces like any other precious stone, especially if put under the pressure of blunt forces. It is because of this crystalline structure that they can live for seemingly eternity, but they are also limited in number. A crystallian isn't born so much as carved out, each one created from crystal long before our time. Their existence is credited to seemingly a single creator, carving their race before apparently disappearing. We can presume this person to be an astrologer, as the blue crystal comprising their form is the same as magic glintstone. Certain Crystallians even conjure glintstone sorcery. This is consistent with their inspiration. The enemy's design nigh identical to the Crystal Warriors, guardians created by powerful sorcerers in the fighting fantasy series, which Hidetaka Miyazaki frequently references in games he has directed prior to Elden Ring. Creating magical life forms with crystal is also no doubt part of Stargazer culture. The crystal dart is a throwing weapon similarly carved from low-purity crystal, draining our focus to draw out the latent magic in the crystal for damage. And yet, the description makes a point of how golem engineers used such a tool in the past. Perhaps they didn't cobble them together with cracked crystals, but they certainly used glintstone to bring mineral constructs to life. This is why stone golems short-circuit when struck with enough crystal darts, their heads sparking with magic blue bolts as if overloaded while they wildly attack both friend and foe. Such malfunctions are proof of these glintstone engineers' construction, and the work with glintstone demands they be some kind of astrologer. Indeed, an alternate description for the astrologer set would speak instead of glintstone artisans, researchers who seek out the best stones to polish in their fascination. These stone gazers are still effectively stargazers, and it is easy to see how, broadly, their practice is a basic component to sorcery. And part of that was traveling around to find the many glintstones in need of polishing. For sure, the Crystallians weren't born anywhere near the Stargazer village. Most of the race can be encountered in Liurnia, with the smaller numbers outside the area all traceable back to the Western land. We can likewise buy a nomadic warrior's recipe for crystal darts, among other magic crafts, from a nomadic merchant camping out in Liurnia. Clearly, the developers intend to impress the place as most relevant to golem engineers, with the Crystallians presenting the prime example of what they can craft with glintstone. Their creator was likely one such engineer, traveling down from his mountaintop village to find new high-quality crystal in other areas. Eventually, his research brought him to Liurnia, where he used some of its crystal to carve the new race of mineral life, proof of the experience he cultivated in the time between. Even the creator's disappearance can be explained as continuing to search for new stones to experiment within lands yet unseen. Perhaps the perished on the frontier, but absence left his masterpieces forever waiting for the master to make more of them. It is important to emphasize that these crystal men are more than mere golems. The description of crystal barrage identifies them with faint, thinking, cognition which isn't fully there. As stone, it may be too much to expect a very emotional race, behaving more like logical automatons with their precise, almost mechanical movements. Nonetheless, they are alive and express themselves as living agents with free will. Not only are they unaffected by crystal darts in contrast to their peers, the race is consistently referenced in the same fashion as humans or beastmen as a tribe. Absent orders from the creator, the Crystallians originally congregated together as a united group and have since spread out from Liurnia following their individual judgments, a far cry from programmable constructs operating within those limited bounds. They may not build cities, but we do see them meditate while floating, especially around crystal clusters. They seem to synchronize their minds with their base element, a collective desire for unity which presupposes a kind of cultural development. Indeed, Crystallians appear to carve for themselves weapons from the crystal which birthed them, all to protect that same crystal in perpetuity. Observers theorize that they expect their creator to return and carve for them new brethren, a religious belief from a race which...
Yep, okay. There we go.
Indeed, Crystallians appear to carve for themselves weapons from the crystal which birthed them, all to protect that same crystal in perpetuity. Observers theorize that they expect their creator to return and carve for them new brethren, a religious belief from a race which can't normally reproduce. The reason natives can't confirm more for themselves is because the Crystallians are considered enigmatic, being so alien from organic life. This manifests not just in their obvious appearance, but also thinking. Besides throwing a red cape over the shoulder, the crystal men lack a sense of clothing, and their insight concerning crystal is unmatched. They probably can't even fully explain their understanding to man, hence why none can reproduce their crystal weaponry. The glintstone magic infused into their bodies makes manipulation of crystal second nature, whereas only the most intelligent of humans can hope to maximize the lethality of such an armament. This is called the wisdom of stone for good reason. As pure glintstone, they are fundamentally more like stars than men, despite appearances. That alien nature is probably why they center their thinking amidst fellow crystal and await the creator's return. Born of the same astral amber, the Crystallians can sense the life inherent to the glintstone and wish to free it from its confines, give it form and consciousness. They are all stardust, and barring a reversion to the mean, it is better that they be together as a collective of active agents than disconnected with dormant pieces of the whole. This fixation on their astral origin extends to the religion. The gurus practicing sorcery amongst their kind most notably unleash Crystal Release, whose very name invokes the liberation of crystal. Its form of a large mass that rains shards down across a large area earns it the alias Crystal Sun, spreading glintstone like the solar body's rays of light upon the earth. In the end, the Crystallian seeks freedom for its kind, possibly so that they may spread further across the world as the founding stars first did. Undergirding this, however, is the fact that an astrologer came seemingly all the way down to Liurnia from the mountaintops. This may have begun with a handful of enterprising stargazers leaving one by one over time, each wishing to return to their roots and walk the earth below the peaks. But soon, with the land's reserves of glintstone up north becoming exhausted, more and more would begin moving for greener pastures and bigger crystals. The Crystallians' creator was in all likelihood one of these early departers, a genius whose name might never be recognized despite leaving such a huge legacy. Instead, that sorcerer's masterpieces would simply be admired by later generations as they unknowingly traced the stargazers' footsteps. And we can be certain that they traced such a path thanks to topography. Among the various trees encountered on our journey, the species of large conifers follow the most informative pattern. The tree itself is ubiquitous in only a few regions of the lands between, namely the mountaintops of the Giants, Altus Plateau, and MT Gelmir. By contrast, the same holds true for every area in the realm of shadow. However, this can be justified by the geography. The windmill village of Dominula confirms that the plateau receives northern winds from the mountaintops, allowing for seeds to be carried down south. Considering that pine trees tend to be associated with colder climates, the large conifers are liable to originate from those snowy peaks. Their seeds then cross the gap and spread across Altus and neighboring Gelmir. The same northern winds continued carrying those seeds down to Skadu Altus and below, leading to them covering the entire center of the lands between over time. This explains their natural spread across the lands dating back likely long before much of human history, if that. But these conifers exist not just there but also in other lands, disconnected from the aforementioned travel path. How to explain their appearance in more specific spots? The only answer is a less natural method. Just like the wind, people and animals can also inadvertently carry seeds across vast distances whilst migrating, allowing for new trees to grow far from their original habitat. And if those trees originate from the mountaintops of the giants, then the obvious source of the spread would be mountaintop populations. Put another way, we should expect to see sorcerers in areas where the large conifers are disproportionately concentrated. An obvious example of this are the Carians, whose name is synonymous with sorcery. Both Caria Manor and the Carian Study Hall are surrounded by the conifers, and we see the same for the north entrance to the Sorcery Academy of Raya Lucaria, as well as across the bridge from there, along the southern half of the Bellum Highway. Sorcerers bring conifers. The full extent of this may be masked by geographical changes, namely flooding. Trees generally don't grow in water, leaving bodies of water like ponds typically bare even in heavily forested areas. In cases where we do see trees in such pools, they tend to be dead, fallen trunks, or rotted stumps of driftwood. However, that also implicates the death of those trees within those waters. In the case of the large conifers, we do see a stark contrast between trees on either side of the waterfront. While a conifer on land may occasionally have died due to a plethora of factors, the one in water invariably has died. In other words, the spread of the water kills the trees. Conifers, in fact, appear to be the most susceptible to flooding outside grasses, as we do see the more common kinds of trees and bushes still alive in certain rivers or ponds. Granted, that is likely indicative of a recency bias, as even rivers with surviving trees begin to show signs of death with driftwood. It may take some time, but eventually all those plants submerged by new water flows end up dead. That isn't to say that no tree is adapted to survive in more swampy environments. In Liurnia Lake, we witness a species of oak and certain smaller trees or grasses thrive solely in the water, appearing nowhere on land. Flowers also show the most resilience to watery environments, with blue flowers especially sprouting on the edge of waterfronts on a consistent basis. These plants do exist, and so must have evolved in normally watery environments. However, in the case of the oak trees, they're exclusive to Liurnia in the base game, and the surrounding litter of driftwood affirms that they were never so extensive as we see currently. More than likely, these oaks spread across Liurnia Lake from smaller lakes or ponds preceding it, hence why we find ruined and sinking settlements within it. Increased and uncontrolled water flows results in forests and fields dying and becoming replaced by new ecosystems, meaning that the conifers may have even been more widespread before the evidence was literally washed away. Another obstacle to dendrology is the scarlet rot. Because of how it despoils and replaces ecosystems, identifying the original forests in a land can prove difficult. Even areas yet to suffer the rot's full effects have trees already beginning to die, mostly the same withered oak model used for lands with any kind of containment, poison, death root, even floodwater. But there is another dead tree appearing amongst the decay specifically. This tree type isn't present in every rotted area like the fungi is, casting doubt on them spontaneous generating. While we do see the scarlet blossom and Calid lift some such trees out of the ground with its roots, the concentration doesn't correspond to distance from that flower at the source. Dense forests follow along the Calid highway or congregate around certain settlements, but none surround the blossom, and we can observe a random isolated wood in the south preceding Red Main Castle. All of this is more consistent with the rot killing pre-existing trees, the tree's face always covered in it. And given its tapering trunk and frail branches, it is clearly intended to be a conifer. In short, the rotted tree is likely a stand-in for the healthy conifers in rotted areas. Unlike the generic withered oak, this model marks more than early deaths among the arboreal life, similarly tracing sorcerer populations. The sorcery town of Celia, for instance, is an obvious destination for sorcerers, their ghosts still haunting the streets. It is no surprise to see rotted conifers around it or the nearby Street of Sages ruins, not to mention the highway. There is little doubt that stargazers regularly traveled throughout the region before the rot. That reaffirms the importance of the conifers in following the astrologers' movements. In all likelihood, the lands between has been subject to both east and westward migrations from the mountaintops. By tracing the trees and other dynamics, we can estimate the travel paths of these astrologer populations as they redistributed themselves across the region. From there, the entire history of modern sorcery unfolds. A never-ending journey. Starting with the east side, the sorcerers and Calid likely began with the chase for glintstone. We can be certain that astrologers passed through Farah Missoula from the conifers growing amidst their red groves surrounding the actual capital, plus the handful more at the base of the Mausoleum Bridge, which once led back to the mountaintops. A number probably stayed to live alongside the natives and beastmen, perhaps interested in the country's emphasis on stone in connection to meteors and location at the site of an actual falling star. However, the vast majority probably continued on to Calid, the scant-rotted conifers and grayoles dragon barrow indicating that they kept trekking all the way down the cliffs and slopes until reaching the eastern fields. Afterward, they probably settled in Celia, likely since its foundation. Anyone descending the Siofra deep well will be immediately met with numerous conifers growing in a small forest. A handful more stand tall as part of a separate wood further west, with yet more scattered amongst the trees in the ancestral wood. This suggests a glut of sorcerer traffic at the deep well, with isolated signs of heading further. And in every instance, the trees stop with Nokron either looming above or sitting immediately below. Based on that, it is liable for the astrologers from Calid to have made contact with the Eternal City. This would be due to either the existing connection between the capital and Celia, or a separate interest from the migrating stargazers. In that case, it is possible that they prompted the Nox to establish a colony above ground. We do see no signs of a Newman population in town, apart from clerics from Nokron. If the residents primarily consisted of a mix with outside humans, then it would justify their absence, not to mention the distinct architecture from the Eternal Cities. Keeping the unique architecture in mind, this wouldn't even be the first time that Nox and humans came together to found a new town, more than likely. Ordina may be another Nox colony, but the blue flames of its torches suggest a more conventional human sorcerer presence, like in Celia. Conifers surround the town when they are otherwise absent in the consecrated snowfield, except for those growing along the bottom of the eastern cliffs to the mountaintops. The latter might have grown naturally, following the seed path across the snowfield to northern Altus. The former, not so much. The obvious implication is that many a sorcerer has come to stay in Ordina, possibly since the town's inception. Perhaps a different population of astrologers mingled with a nearby Eternal City, the Nameless City in this case. Without question, there are hints to exchanges between the Nox and the stargazers on the mountaintops once upon a time. Among Castle Sol's prisoners are the aged Albinorics, bodies restrained in Skevington's dives or crawling around as hooded madmen. Even assuming that their capture and torture is a more recent event, how did the Silvermen fall into the garrison's hands? Perhaps thanks to the stargazers living on the other side of the freezing river valley. With the Nox of Ordina adopting silver tears, they didn't need to keep their Albinorics, opening an avenue for trade with the humans interested in their cosmic connection. The Eternal City migrants might also cross paths with the astrologer village while tracing the river to its source. If so, then it is no surprise that some from both parties might establish a permanent settlement at the other end of the frozen water flow. In other words, Ordina was the product of Nox and human interaction. Unlike with the proposed Celia scenario, this was prompted by the Nox's move to the surface first, but they They still established relations during their initial survey, before finally settling in the consecrated snowfield. As a result of these close ties, the Stargazer village received Albinorics to study, even if they would ultimately lose them to the nearby castle. And for those who joined the Eternal City pioneers in founding a township down the mountain, they obtained new possibilities to learn about the stars under Nox's tutelage. Ordina's narrower area of study limited those possibilities, the lack of a chair crypt affirming that research of the river never looped back around to the Lord of Night experiments. But even if more restrictive than in Celia, it was a place where humans and Nox chose to coexist, and might have even served as the blueprint for the Celia population to reach out to Nokron during their own migration. Regardless of specifics, nomadic sorcerers most likely played a similar part in the creation of the other colony in Caelid. After stumbling upon the well and building relations with the Nox living by Siofra over time, the northern humans might negotiate to combine their knowledge and interests with the glintstone found above. Both parties stood to benefit from the arrangement. Nokron wanted research for the Lord of Night, and the supply of glintstone closer to the surface, and the sorcerers wanted arcane secrets concerning the stars and the night. If Ordina was a prior success case, then Nokron might have heard word from their sister city and felt motivated to try their own hand at working with surface dwellers. Regardless, if it advanced their individual goals down the line, it was worth experimenting with the model. At the end of negotiations, Nokron and the astrologers established a permanent settlement above ground. From studying the Nox's arts, the Stargazers derived new versions of the basic sorceries. Celia also looked to their own night sky. One of the towers in town harbors not a torch for their seal, but a windmill resembling the first created by ancient Persians. That not only impresses the town's age and innovation, it also suggests a unique function not seen in the Eternal Cities or Ordina. Concept art shows this mill installed in all the towers, so clearly it holds some critical value to the resident sorcery. Given the specific importance of night to the culture, it isn't a grain mill, but an anemometer, the sorcerers using the device to measure the likelihood of storms or clouds blowing in and blocking view of the stars when the sky was too dark to see them coming. Put another way, it is a tool which the subterranean Nox might not have considered if not for the human perspective, well accustomed to winds in the blistering cold. From early on, Nokron was seeing the value of this cooperation. Indeed, Celia contributed the outside knowledge which the Nox was using to expand their research into the night, taking the glintstone closer to the surface for materials. Mining efforts have been long underway at Celia Crystal Tunnel, and Celia Hideaway has at least been surveyed for future extraction. The town sat at the center of this treasure trove of star debris, experimentation leading to a new staff, which ironically removed the glintstone. The residual power imbued in the wood alone made it ideal for the semi-invisible night stars they fired. The prosperity this brought can be seen in the clusters of crystals lining the main street from arch to arch, the blue flowers growing for added decoration, highlighting the intention to cultivate them in this manner. Anyone walking into Celia was greeted with proof that glintstone was being studied and, more importantly, mastered. It may be propaganda, but it served morale as the residents continued gathering the stars amber for research. Perhaps it was that desire for knowledge which led to Celia expanding into a regional polity. The highway running straight through town lead out and around the old Caelid fields before cutting through the Caelin ruins and continuing until Summonwater Village. This by itself wouldn't be so odd, if not for the fact that it differs from the other highways in the lands between. Unlike its ilk, this Celia highway uses plain tiles without the standard design. The only exception is for two small stretches amidst the road, as well as on the edges to fencing, albeit the latter is easily missed and so probably just an oversight by developers reusing the same fence models. The obvious implication is that the plain tiles are original to the highway, with the ornate tiles added in subsequent renovations. This thereby insinuates that the Celia highway predates the others, existing as part of its own trade network limited to the Caelid region. This trade network supplied more than just Celia. Crossing the border from Limgrave to Caelid, there exist houses and stables with a well, carts, and platforms over the cliff's edge, perched above the forsaken ruins. Site F. This setup was perfect for traveling caravans to stop and rest while residents offloaded their cargo to lower down on the village underneath. Site F doesn't exist along the highway, with only a dirt road to Caelin, so hoisting loads down the precipice would be more convenient. The travelers could then continue on the main road to either Summonwater Village or Caelin, with Celia always as the first or last destination. In effect, Celia served as the capital of a local hegemony. Whether or not it was organized enough to be called a country, the city of Saria lives up to its name derived from Arabic to mean night traveler, like the shooting stars that—
Alright. This can't be Site F, because I know Site F is Frenzy Flame Village. Oh, it's gonna complicate things. That is gonna complicate things. Only these two instances, too. I have to double check stuff like Radon now to make sure I didn't accidentally do that there. Yeah, I don't want to confuse people. There we go. That fixes that. That was something I did not consider. Hey, TG. Good to see you in the chat. Man, I should have considered that sooner. It did not even occur to me. That was really, really dumb of me. All right. Like, that is a pretty basic thing I should have known before I wrote that. I don't think it's going to affect anything else, though. While we're there, let me also double check. Can I do anything with the... Yeah. This should be this, I think. As in Cillian's. As in all of Cilia's streets. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think that'll work. I just want to clarify that because we do have, as we can see here, it's not just the highway, of course. Obviously, all the streets are paved with these tiles, and I just think that that's worth clarifying for the sake of take a shot here. I just think in general that's something worth clarifying for people. That's not just like, oh, the highway is done this way. It's like, no, everything beyond even the main street, right? Clarify that here. I say one stretch of the I should say 3 stretches of the highway. 1 in town. Yeah. Let's do that, yeah. We'll work on that one in the future then. Say 2 stretches, right? So 2 stretch. Yeah. Oh no, I do not. Did I read that? Yeah, 2 small stretches. Yeah, I'll think about it, because I might have to rewrite this entire little thing on how I word it. Either way, I mean, we have space, so it's okay. I have a lot of wiggle room there. Let's go back to this.
This trade network supplied more than just Celia. Crossing the border from Limgrave to Caelid, there exist houses and stables with a well, carts, and platforms over the cliff's edge, perched above the forsaken ruins. This setup was perfect for traveling caravans to stop and rest while residents offloaded their cargo to lower down on the village underneath. The ruins don't exist along the highway, with only a dirt road to Caelid, so hoisting loads down the precipice would be more convenient. The travelers could then continue on the main road to either Summonwater Village or Caelid, with Celia always as the first or last destination. In effect, Celia served as the capital of a local hegemony. Whether or not it was organized enough to be called a country, the city of Seria lives up to its name derived from Arabic to mean night traveler, like the shooting stars themselves. The astrologers flowed out chasing those nocturnal lights, spreading their influence across the wider region. Indeed, Celia's chief interest beyond the night sky were the stars shining in it.
Okay.
Selin confirms that the town was her master Lizette's homeland, and he and others from there prefer sorceries, which conjure multiple shooting stars. Likewise, Move Veil is a Celian masterpiece, which imbues the magic light of astral bodies into a blade hidden within its scabbard, hence the moniker. The sword further posits how the town didn't discriminate. The meteoric ore blade was crafted from the iron of falling stars, with even its curved blade resembling the form of the stone meteorites crashing to Earth due to gravity. By that same token, the meteorite staff uses some of their dark purple fragments as a catalyst for gravity sorcery especially. Both weapons are acquired in Caelid, meaning that meteors and gravity magic were another popular subject in the town. For Celians, anything related to stars was worth studying, with even a bird's-eye telescope installed in the middle of the highway just south of Caleb. Some of this was no doubt due to circumstance. The meteoric ore blade, for instance, was expressly forged for defeating the beings born from meteors, even recreating the gravitas skill of alabaster lords. With such large glintstone deposits in the area, there was assuredly a huge population of the stone-skinned kings of gravity, most of whom might have been hostile to any researcher. Caelid was thus sure to see a culling at the hands of the human population. At the same time, the wider interest in stars ultimately links back to the Nox. The earlier iteration of the meteorite sorcery's description notes how the eternal cities gave equal meaning to the falling rocks and stars, recognizing them as one and the same. While no Nox spell involves gravity magic, that persistent belief would still explain the agnosticism present in their surface colony. So long as it produced a Lord of Night, it didn't matter what element of it they explored, something clearly shared with Celia. So critical was this to the culture, even the town's actual limits weren't absolute. Residing at the outskirts of Celia, Gowry describes himself as a former sage. This isn't just him touting his intelligence as a sorcerer. The sages refers to a group of wise men associated with heresy. According to the set's description, their deep red hooded robes prove that they have been driven out of town, the town in question assuredly referring to Celia. This is because, by heading out west through the swamp of Scarlet Rot, we come upon the Street of Sages ruins, though it more accurate call it the Sage Town ruins, based on the circumstances. The area is a collection of buildings clearly separate from any other settlement and maintaining its own cliffside graveyard. The place is also strangely cut off from the Celian highway. We can thus conclude that it is no mere street, but an independent urban community, populated by exile sages. And with their exclusion from the main highway circuit, almost hidden from view, this sage town's closest contact would be Celia. In short, sorcerers banished from the sorcery town crossed the then fields of Ionia to live a small ways outside of it. Tucked in the corner of Caelid's rock face, they could continue their practice freely without garnering outsiders' attention. The fact that they are called sages acknowledges their expertise. The work was just unpalatable for Celian society to see openly practiced. Out of sight and out of mind, the sages were permitted to hone their craft no matter how heretical their fellow men of reason, ironically enough, labeled it. This freedom from continued persecution demonstrates Celia's wisdom in spite of prejudice. If an individual Celian sought insight from a subject of heresy, they need only make a short trek outside of town to consult a heretic. Even they couldn't deny the utility to the sages' pursuits. It didn't matter if it only applied to niche scenarios, anything which might advance research into glintstone was worth preserving. Thus, another community was born in the Celia network. What constituted heresy seems to have been largely arbitrary. One of the corpses in the Sage Town ruins carries the meteorite staff, implying that a gravity sorcerer counted among the exiles. Meteoric ore blade has similarly been stored in the crypt of the Caelid Waypoint ruins, likely confiscated from its long-dead and buried owner. In other words, Celia banned the practice of gravity sorcery at some point, banishing any persistent practitioners to become sages while the old arts were hidden away. The reason wasn't the least concerned with principles, only survival. A sword monument for the Star Scourge conflict confirms that Celia apparently needed protection from the stars at one point, which the Star Scourge heirloom depicts as a giant meteorite. In that case, banning falling stars is the natural reaction to mitigate future chances of summoning their own destruction, similar to the behavior exhibited toward eternal darkness. But if the sages of the town in the fringes accidentally destroyed themselves with a meteor, that was their problem. In summary, the sorcery town was open to all kinds of studies, so long as that research didn't pose a direct risk to the town. They can't control the path of destruction of an Estelle, but few other arts presented that kind of collateral damage. If public opinion changed about the art, so would the policy. And by banishing the sages of these unsavory secrets, instead of just eliminating them, Celia could reap all the benefits with none of the risks. This appeased their Nox overseers waiting for them to produce their king, as well as the astrologers with varied interests. And because their combined power was so great, they could enforce their bans across the region. It might have restricted who could learn gravity magic afterward, but that was the Celian way. True to the Nox crest, it was always about the flow of the stars and the Lord of Night they might produce. And for what it is worth, the Caelid region does seem to have been the preeminent land of sorcery for a good while. Lecture on the Mount. Moving on to the western side, the Lasker ruins are one of the largest settlements in Liurnia, located to the south. Although currently flooded by the lake, the area's populace might still be identified. For one, corpses in the area carry items like a ritual pot or glintstone craftsman cookbook detailing freezing grease. The name Laska likewise appears to be a play on Alaska, the northernmost state in the US known for its polar climate. Taken together, it suggests that the culture of Laskiar is steeped in sorcery from the mountaintops of the giants. Combined with its size, and the town most likely served as the equivalent to Celia, the main destination for a large swathe of migrating astrologers. Considering the location, the group probably followed the flow of glintstone from Altus, finally stopping as they approached the end reaching Stornhill. After all, by that point, this Laskiar tribe would have seen all there was to see surveying the different lands. Traveling across Altus Plateau, there aren't many obvious signs of crystal beyond the occasional glintstone bud. The deposits do exist, as Altus Tunnel and the ruin-strewn precipice reveal, but no large source would be immediately obvious to the passing traveler. Contrast to Liurnia. Scattered across the region down to Laskiar exist crystal formations. Perhaps these were cultivated by the Crystallians, but their consistent appearance, at least partially, in the lake water suggests an alternate possibility. The water flows down from the aforementioned precipice. At the end of Mt. Gelmer's seething river lies a cliff with a lake at the bottom, the obvious destination to the overflow. However, the Sage's cave situated between the river and lake exposes how much of the water sinks into the earth and falls straight down inside of the plateau, where it is then channeled out the ruins of the precipice. That forms the river valley flowing out into Liurnia Lake. And if both Altus and the precipice harbor glintstone, then it is viable for the water to pick up trace deposits like any other mineral. Put simply, the glintstone formations in the lake are probably products of the water flow. Just as how minerals in water accumulate to form speleothems over long periods, as we frequently witness underground, glintstone might have done the same before there was even one huge lake. The network of ponds and streams would cause the flow to inconsistently slow and pool, allowing for the star's amber to build up in places. Those accumulations gradually grow until they become some of the huge formations we see, becoming obvious markers for anyone seeking such glintstone deposits. Perhaps it was with these formations that the Crystallians' creator made them, one of the early explorers from the west. But with the Laskiar's subsequent migration, they too would see strong signs of glintstone in the area. The assumption wouldn't be wrong, as Lakeside Crystal Cave and Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel alone prove. But the most obvious source to search lay at the center of these wetlands. The Raya Lucaria Mount stands tall as an anomaly in an otherwise lowland. Entering its hollow recesses brings us to plentiful crystal, with our view from the lake of rot showing the sheer depth of the deposit. Huge crystals just hanging from the ceiling all around the stone pillar supporting the entire mount from underground. Factoring it all together, the towering rock may have formed because the site was subject to an exceptionally large meteor strike, displacing the earth into a massive pile above ground. And regardless of whether it is a natural phenomenon, it still draws immediate attention to anyone visiting Liurnia. This makes it reasonable for astrologers to investigate and thus discover the glintstone lacing the rock. By the time they were approaching Storm Hill, the stargazer had assuredly surveyed the largest glintstone deposits in the area and would see the visible formation cease along with their prospects for a richer location. And so, that was the end of their nomadic ways. Besides its situation at the lower limit of the lake's crystallization, the exact location of Laskiar in the south was more than likely influenced by the overall climate. A side effect of the low elevation to Liurnia Lake is fog. Heavy rain and thick mist are common weather conditions in the region, no doubt promoted by the depression. Even on clear days, the lowland captures enough moisture to preserve an ever-present haze over the lake, stretching north all the way up to the Raya Lucaria mountain. That likewise implies chillier temperatures, as confirmed by Rhea whilst the sojourner from Jalmir stands in the middle of the lake. Such weather dynamics are liable to remain true even before the modern lake formed, much like its forests, so Laskiar was likely established amidst these cool mists. Feeling more at home, the migrants from snowy peaks set down roots by the water and prepared to excavate. Indeed, the modern-day Academy of Raya Lucaria most likely began as just a humble dig site. Between the illustrious school buildings hides the various boxes and tools used for mining, signs that sorcerers have continued to excavate the pit, exposing all of the crystal formations. This accessible supply of glintstone was presumably the reason for the Academy's location, along with the mountain's high elevation convenient for stargazing. One can imagine astrologers of Laskiar toiling away for the best quality stone by day, then studying the stars' movements by night. Eventually, someone would have an epiphany, share that idea with his or her fellows, and soon have a bunch exchanging similar ideas until they all agreed to begin writing down the discourse. Thus did Raya Lucaria begin. The first to be recognized as a glintstone sorcerer was Azza. With a name evoking the azure blue color common to sorcery, the man must have been an impressive reasoner, and naturally, he put that intelligence to the test deciphering the primeval current. When the academy began, he already had a talented apprentice in Selen, according to Thops. Most likely then, he was one of the new Laskiar tribe who began instructing others encamped on the mountain after he made huge strides in his understanding of the stars. This also explains why, when the academy was established, his was the first class, the Carollo's Conspectus. Before there were fancy classrooms, there was a group of students learning one teacher's sermons on the mount. Selen was just one of these young members of the Laskiar who took to his tutelage, strict as it expressly was. That dirty dig site was the academy, and the Greek Carollos meaning free man speaks to the infinite possibilities available to Azza's followers at that time. In the end, however, the new Carollos class narrowed their focus to one particular research field, namely comets. These were the sorceries that Azza developed, with few ever mastering the most powerful comet spell. Attempts were nonetheless made to create new comets from glintstone, failures still resulting in sorceries like Shard Spiral. Those recognized for their attempts were rewarded with a glintstone head, a stone mask with crystal at the top. It is easy to imagine why this practice began, considering the school's origins on a dig site. Existing excavations just demanded they hollow out a sizable chunk of rock with glintstone already in it and carve the stone into a face. The glintstone upon the cranium actually synergizes with the person's thoughts, glowing bright as we have our Eureka moment performing the erudition gesture. There could be no better proof that an astrologer's thinking was reaching the stars, and Carollos assuredly pioneered this practice. With movement restricted and so much crystal on hand, astrologers on the mount reasonably tended toward consolidating tall than numbering wide. Because the institution was established for the study of the primeval current, Raya Lucaria's central symbol is the peering cuckoo. Cuckoos are associated with augury related to death and rebirth, perfectly fitting for sorcerers wishing that humans abandon flesh and return to stardom. Augury is also likely an actual practice performed regularly at the academy. All throughout the school, we can find copious bird cages, many harboring cuckoos both alive and dead. Why keep so many birds on hand unless to free them when seeking an omen? Just as Roman augurs typically searched for auspices in the late night before dawn, students might examine the stars' reaction as they release the birds to move through the dark sky above. This reading of fate from atop their mount was just another form of research, and it began with the pursuit of the primeval current in the Carollo's Conspectus. As a consequence, the image of a cuckoo only partially blocking its sight from shining glintstone showcases the sorcerer's desire to know the stars, despite being overwhelmed by their immense power. But soon there was another Conspectus. Selen describes Luzat as another first of the glintstone sorcerers studying the primeval current, one whom she equally respects as a teacher. But Luzat wasn't one of the Laskiar like implicitly Azza and Selen were. Hailing from Celia, him and his resulting Olivinus class pursue a different kind of glintstone sorcery concerning the shooting stars, with Star Shower proving the most difficult for the students. The name Ruzado is an anagram of Sotoru, meaning to understand and even attain enlightenment in Buddhism, highlighting the depth of Luzat's wisdom. It was this desperation to completely know the shooting stars that probably prompted him to depart his homeland, flowing like them as he continued to follow their paths. Eventually, his feet took him beyond the Celian highway and all the way over to Liurnia, where he established his class. How he made the journey to Caelid is easy enough to imagine. Bird's eye telescopes can be found on the roads between Raya Lucaria and Laskiar, as well as between Limgrave and Agil Lake, suggesting historic astrologer travel through those routes. The latter would be especially relevant to Luzat. Even assuming that the bridges across the Murkwater Valley didn't exist at the time, a Celian sorcerer could make the journey to Laskiar rather easily. Setting off from the end of the highway at Summonwater Village, they could travel south down the slopes and past Mistwood, then turn north crossing the mouth of the valley to Storm Hill, at which point it was a short trek to Laskiar over the hill. At worst, the traveling stargazer would only need to cross a few small streams and survive the harsh winds toward the end. It was a feasible path connecting sorcerer populations in Liurnia and Caelid. Once enough adventurous individuals discovered the path and made the way back to establish proper contact and relations. Luzat may not have been the very first to make this journey, but his was definitely the most consequential. After a long time chasing shooting stars, the primeval sorcerer came across Laskiar and then the mount where Azza was teaching his class. With that, he brought a new influx of information for the burgeoning academy to consider. Just as the Carollo's glintstone crown boosts intelligence at the cost of stamina in reflection of its longer history, the Olivinus glintstone head even more greatly boosts intelligence at the cost of HP to capture its huge impact to the academy despite the shorter existence. Luzat was a huge boon to the Laskiar's collective research, and he wasn't alone. The Olivinus Conspectus consists mainly of graduates from Celia, Shushanshu, referring to someone leaving both the school and their place of origin. There have been many, like Luzat, who wish to move beyond Celia and deepen their knowledge of shooting stars under new tutelage. Just as Liurnia and Caelid were becoming loosely interconnected by transit and trade, Luzat established his own class on the mount with his fellow Celians, distinct but complementary to Azza's research. That may well be the idea behind the name for the conspectus. Olivinus, a Latinization of olive, is part of the scientific name for an African species of cuckoo. Like other cuckoo birds, it is commonly considered solitary and deceptive due to its practice of laying eggs in other birds' nests, tricking them into raising its brood. In Lizette's case, this would be planting the seeds for a new school of thought in another land. Some fans might posit olive as a reference to the more greenish hue of some sorceries, but this applies more to Carollo's arts than anything produced by Olivinus. Alternatively, the olive tree is a symbol of Athena, the ancient Greek goddess of wisdom planting one as she became the patron god to Athens, which itself is famed for producing many great philosophers. Being associated with both wisdom and prosperity, the Olivinus class may signify the harmony reached with Carollo's to create the greatest learning institution. Indeed, it was likely at this point that the two first among primeval sorcerers came together to establish a formal academic institution with the facilities we know today. Both men are regarded as supreme instructors of the academy, with none replacing them after they left those positions in exile. Their robes feature a distinct pattern we see incorporated into Raya Lucaria's various banners, several hanging in the Church of the Cuckoo at the front entrance and another, fancier cloth-colored regal purple and gold, enshrined in the debate parlor flanked by a giant black telescope and sextant. From this use in shrines, it is clear that the pattern holds major symbolism for astrologers, and it is both Azza and Luzat uniquely permitted to wear that symbol as teachers. In that case, the two must play a co-equal role in establishing the formal school system, their titles serving as the deans or principals. We see their preeminence in the various portraits of sorcerers hanging throughout the academy. Two in particular depict men wearing the school uniform, except with unique additions. The one resembling the Carollo's head dons a distinctive cloak, whereas the one with the Olivinus head has the academy's crest sewn prominently on his stole, and wears fancy silver vambraces embedded with glintstone. In all likelihood, these men are Azza and Luzat respectively. While cut content indicates plans for Carollo's to be a separate stage responsible for sparking a revival in the academy, such a figure is inconsistent with the class history in the final game. Regardless of name, it is more reasonable for each head to depict the founder of the respective conspectus. Students were trying to reach Azza and Luzat's levels specifically when striving to obtain a glintstone head learning under them. Therefore, it is safe to infer that both portraits depict the primeval sorcerers after the modern institution was built, with the additions to the uniform signifying their shared leadership role over the academy. With his fancier status indicators, Luzat was likely the more visible of the two. Exploring the academic halls and classrooms, we commonly spy heads of the Olivinus conspectus hanging on the corners and columns of every wall, looking down on where the students learned and walked. This gives the impression of Luzat's class acting as a sort of hall monitor. He and Azza may have made all the final decisions, but if both held a veto over the other's choices, the friction would hinder the academy's growth. Thus, it was logical to split the different responsibilities. As head of the oldest class, Azza could take charge of the broad decisions for building, expanding, and organizing the academy's framework. Meanwhile, Luzat might have served as the dean in charge of management for that system. It is only too fitting that the one studying shooting stars be assigned to monitor the flow of students each day, ensuring they remain properly diligent with their studies. In this way, Carollo's and Olivinus were checks upon each other, respecting their master's co-equal authority. By dividing the background and day-to-day tasks between themselves, the two primeval sorcerers could continue working as teachers, pursuing their own research and running a growing and complex institution. In the end, it became the academy we know today, with shelves upon shelves of books demonstrating the amount of knowledge cultivated there. Indeed, the name Raya Lucaria appears to be a play on the English ray, referring to light, and the Latin lucar, denoting a sacred grove, making the academy a holy forest of light. Nothing could better encapsulate the place's meaning to sorcerers. Forests are often a poetic allusion for libraries, and light ties into both the stars and enlightenment. For glintstone sorcerers, a forest of books recording the illumination of countless researchers across generation was sacrosanct, turning Raya Lucaria into a holy land that soon every sorcerer, from Celia to Laskiar, needed to attend for their own erudition. What started from humble beginnings became the center of sorcery in the lands between. A world their own.
Okay.
Raya Lucaria wasn't built in a day, but the development of its facilities are straightforward. The north building is dedicated to welcoming visitors. The east building reserves the grand library with campus garden. The south building houses classrooms and the debate parlor, and the west building is presumably residential. Certainly, the academy is where students live and die, based on the sizable graveyard at the center between the buildings. The rotten bodies rising from the graves have glowing blue eyes forecasting their hunger for focus, which they suck right out of us if grabbed, a desperation for the willpower sorcerers need to perform their arts. Attendees are honored with burial on the mount with their precious glintstone, so they must usually die on site regardless of circumstance. As added evidence, this hypothetical dormitory maintains the most miniature bells and a larger bell tower, perfect for signaling to students when to wake and leave for class or return from studies for a good night's sleep. The only taller tower lies closer to the center, perhaps acting as a universal time marker for special occasions. It is atop this tower that we acquire Terra Magica, named for the Academy's magic sigil cast across the earth. The description confirms that the sorcery was once used on a larger scale, covering the entire school grounds. Given the circumstances, this was most likely when Azza and Luzat were both still part of the faculty, the supreme instructors possessing the knowledge and ability to maximize the potential of this sorcery earth spell. That would explain why the tower can only be accessed through the Academy crystal cave at the base of the mountain, gated behind an imp statue seal. This area, used for rising the tower and minor storage, was sure to be an excellent place for private research whenever they didn't need to reapply the spell. This is also consistent with the sorcery's purpose, empowering all within its bounds so that students feel inspired by their greater success. And who would want this more than teachers nurturing the young minds?
Okay. Teleporter.
Because of all the traffic shifting from Laskiar to the academy itself, a settlement soon preceded its gates at the foot of the mountain. This pre-gate town proves to be even larger than Laskiar, regulating all inflow across the southern bridge. With the school at the literal center of Liurnia, this became the premier hub for trade and housing, bringing immense prosperity to the community. With that also came certain reverence for the sorcerers, the blue-white wooden shield by the gate denoting the residents' fascination with the stars and fate. Only a little west of the town ruins sits the temple quarter, positioned under the classroom building, Hemicyclium. One can imagine students practicing their craft on break, calling stars down upon the ground below their balcony. The church block probably took it upon itself to collect these holy relics for the townsfolk to gawk at, effectively becoming the local treasure house. This is consistent with the acts we find stored as tribute. More importantly, pre-gate towns in Japan typically develop in front of temple gates, making Raya Lucaria the holy place to revere. The academy wasn't inherently opposed to this kind of attention, since anyone visiting first enters the Church of the Cuckoo as their welcome. Put another way, Raya Lucaria wasn't irreligious when it was a religion of reason, or at least a cult of personality centered around them. To the sorcerer's minds, they were the elite, their education from a lifetime of mental rigor putting them above the rest of humanity. If the people wished to honor them as beings from on high, who were they to argue? In the end, it didn't change these gods' place on empty Olympus, still toiling away in their ivory tower without meddling much with the rabble. In fairness, they did live much like monks in their temple on high. While still a high-quality uniform, students received their simple navy blue robes only upon swearing vows of poverty and wisdom, dedicating their entire lives to researching glintstone. There they live among the student body, take only what they receive, and spend countless hours learning from their predecessors in hopes of achieving enlightenment, truly little different from monastic life. Even still, Raya Lucaria is an academic institution, so a student's studies remained focused on curriculum. First, the new attendee learns the rudimentary sorceries that anyone with modest talent can master. Assuming that his or her intelligence proves capable, the student will eventually be recognized as a researcher and receive a glintstone head. Which head depends on their choice of class. The conspectus scroll detailing the glintstone comet's heart and star shower sorceries belonging to the two familiar classes. Whether joining Carollos or Olivinus, the sorcerer was prepared to read about more advanced sorcery. Only, the teachers were sure to be focused on just one school of thought in their textbooks. But although Azza and Lizzette's courses have probably been the most common paths for students to take, we see that there are more glintstone heads to select than just their two. Even if someone started out as a Carollos or Olivinus sorcerer, there were soon other classes to transfer to, each with their own head.
Okay.
The Twin Sage Conspectus represents the elite among the student body, receiving their own glintstone head without limitation to a specific area of study. The Mask of Two Wise Men hence provides the greatest intelligence boost at the cost of both HP and stamina, combining the effects of the Carollos and Olivinus glintstone crowns. The heads even bear crystals of both class colors. The origins of this conspectus can be inferred from the portrait of two sorcerers with similar faces as the mask. Like Azza and Lizette, both sages don a student uniform with unique flares, one displaying the same pattern as the supreme instructors while the other wears the same cloak as Lizette. Most likely, the two are the top of their respective classes and so promoted by their instructors to becoming junior deans, professors of a new class dedicated to cultivating the best talent for research the existing classes might have missed. They were the proof of Azza and Lizette's success with this academic experiment of theirs. One field of study we can credit to the Twin Sages is the existence of the crystal cadre. Sorcerers of the school research the Crystallion's unique thinking which produces such a barren sorcery. From their long observations of the mineral race, the group has already recreated weaker variants of their crystal sorcery. One of these spells, Crystal Burst, is cast by the Twin Sage sorcerers we encounter, so there is no denying that the conspectus played a key role in developing this field. That doesn't mean that the cadre are exclusively Twin Sage types. Selin graduated from her prior classes to earn her own glintstone crown, and she teaches us another sorcery of the group, Crystal Barrage. Anyone with the talent and ability could theoretically study whatever they wish, as seen with Thop spending his life developing a force field spell worthy of a new conspectus before he had even earned a glintstone head. Most are just better off sticking with their class until they achieved that level of knowledge. Not everyone was built for the ivory tower, however. The High Rhoda's glintstone crown was given to, not so much a conspectus, but sorcerers who decided to leave the academic grounds and wander the wider world. The sage who apparently started this practice is depicted with a smooth crystal dome and a red blindfold, drawing obvious parallels to Buddhism. Covering the eyes represents ignoring the vulgar things outward in order to focus inward on the spiritual truths. The name High Rhodas is more accurately Gerodas, a Hellenization of the Hebrew Jarrett, meaning the descender, in common association with bringing knowledge down from on high. It conveys similar connotations of enlightenment as Lizette, but with the understanding that such wisdom comes from movement. Put another way, to block out the vulgar, one must first know what it is, how else can anyone recognize what it is not? For High Rhodas, the truth would not be discovered examining the same glintstone in one place. Only by experiencing the full reality in nature can we finally comprehend human existence in relation to the stars. There is some precedent to this. Academy sorcerers were permitted to embark on journeys of discovery at times. What school doesn't allow for field study? As we see from the local ghosts, plenty have gone as far as Celia, likely to exchange knowledge with their brethren out east. Brought with them would be sorceries like Starlight or Glintstone Arc. Because these were solitary field trips, the student would receive instruction on spells to help them deal with situations out on the road. Heavens forbid the feeble student get ganged up on by highwaymen or find themselves in pitch dark without a torch. High Rhoda sorcerers were presumably afforded the same options before setting off on even larger journeys, led by one who cut text for their blindfolded head referred to as one of the greats in his choice. This seclusion from the academic environment impressed Azza and Luzat enough to give the sage and any who wished to follow his example their own glintstone crown. In some ways, High Rhoda students remain the truest to their vows. The crown is part of the errant sorcerer set, ragged robes which convey the poverty of those living the same as traveling ascetics. Such stray sorcerers can continue to chase the stars and find new places where they fall, see their effect on different environments, and spread more about the prosperity of glintstone by example. In fact, it is likely because of High Rhodas that astrology has become popularized outside the lands between, with two kinds of sorcerers as our potential backgrounds. Elden Rain, Nitrain introduces the scholar, who searches for the lands between as a member of a High Rhoda's research hall. Who else but dedicated globetrotters would cross the sea of fog to other continents, passing on their knowledge to the wider world. This is a great boon considering the drawbacks. The glintstone head boosts the traveler's intelligence and endurance in exchange for FP, acknowledging that life on the road limits their full potential compared to those dedicating all their energy to willpower in a classroom. But with so many more researchers across the world, the truth might be yet closer to within reach. Of course, there were other reasons someone might be leaving the academy. Those who fail to receive a glintstone head, typically making it no farther in their studies than swift glintstone shard, become derided as glintstone, the idea of being dull, referring to both minerals and smarts. Those who cannot become sharp crystal are too stupid to be recognized as sorcerers. Instead, those who fall behind are branded with learning another simple sorcery, shatter earth, and get thrown into the mines. Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel out east is the primary example. Countless diggers who were former students using crystal daggers and hard-tipped staves doubling as digging tools to harvest crystals for the academy. To make up for the waste of time and resources trying to cultivate their mines, the failures are forced to supply new resources for their betters. Those who showed promise might learn the more advanced rock blaster, but they apparently never graduate from this lowly duty. That befits the strict instruction of Azza, assuming that he did decide such policies. For those that remain, life at Raya Lucaria was erudite, the best minds exchanging ideas in the classroom, challenging their rigor in the debate parlor, and testing their validity in the courtyard. Accidents may happen, and egos were sure to flare, but it was overall a safe and productive feedback loop for the smartest minds, leading to impressive innovations. This didn't apply to just sorcery. With how the Academy Mount was being hollowed out of glintstone, scaling deeper and deeper was becoming a greater and greater effort for mere bookworms. The Academy solved this problem with a water wheel lift system, allowing students to effortlessly walk on and off the dig site at their leisure. The wheels drip with water from an unseen source, but we can assume that it pours down from the rock ceiling above, with proximity to the fountain in the courtyard above to imply a shared pumping system. The two might even feed into each other, as the upper wheels pulley connects to a gear mechanism for some sort of power generation. Clearly, the erudition the school cultivated was as much practical as theoretical. The end result has been a temple of knowledge where the saints are the sages and the scriptures are the formulas. Outside the eternal cities, no single institution in the lands between appears to be as advanced as the Sorcery Academy, and the amount of sorcery performed there is obvious from the glowing blue wisps of power wafting about the rooftops. It was those developments to the modern day that no doubt made Raya Lucaria the promised land for every astrologer hoping to maximize his or her talents. Azza and Luzat's efforts paid off, an entire ecosystem created around their institution at its heart. That system would only grow wider as students graduated or otherwise set out on their own. High Rhodos wasn't the only path to travel for an academy sorcerer, after all. Many would take their knowledge and explore new avenues in other places, the journey's final destination already in mind. Aspiring minds certainly want freedom to reach for the stars, but not always would they do their instructors proud. Trim your branches. Far down south on the Weeping Peninsula, the demi-human forest ruins, Site D, are named for the tribe currently roaming the woods surrounding the settlement, their queen making her home in the destruction. However, this obviously wasn't always the case, so who lived there before them? The forest notably consists of large conifers, with a single tree managing to cross the small gap to Limgrave. Defeating the Rune Bear Denning and Earthboar Cave at Forest's Edge likewise rewards us with a Spelldrake talisman protecting against sorcery. We can thus conclude that the settlement was established by another sorcerer population. These migrants might also be responsible for the ailing village, which sits within a similar conifer forest atop the cliffs. The migration was definitely regional, since we can spy more conifers in rows dotting the grassy field west of the villages. But even if the ailing village comprised of natives, there is no doubt that sorcerers came to live amidst and alongside them.
All right. Missed a little bit of that last part because of the death. Yeah, okay, that's all. Yeah, that's all consistent. Okay, cool. Back to it. Yeah, if it's about Elden Ring, again, check the link in the description to my website. It'll probably help you if you're trying to at least get a sense of, but it's way too big to summarize. If we're talking about what I'm doing in the stream in general, just reviewing one of the analysis for the website, while getting screenshots also for the future analysis on the website.
Put simply, a sorcerer migration came to establish Site D as a colony, currying favor with the locals so that they could remain unobstructed long-term. Whatever caused the settlement's destruction, they were evidently well-liked, which begs the question of what brought them so far out from Liurnia or Caelid. Right? The answer lies in the shield of the guilty still stored in the ruins. The shield is named for criminal offenders who have their eyes gouged by thorns, though Toghanin can be applied to any kind of sinner worthy of censure. In this case, it depicts not the typical criminal but a priestess, associating these sorcerers with faith. As added evidence, we acquire the faith not crystal tear from the basin behind the ruins. That is reasonable, since blinded eyes covered in their own blood may see the blood star, from whom they learn the Briar sorceries powered by faith. In short, Site D practiced a religion where a maiden was elevated to help discover new sorcery involving faith. And as descriptions to these blood star sorceries reveal, there is nothing the Academy hates more than sorcery reliant on faith. In all likelihood, a subset of the Twin Sage Conspectus looking for new paths to astrology discovered the blood star in their experiments. This created a craze which unsettled the academic establishment, shedding their own blood like some barbaric ritual, just to conjure thorns through faith. Raya Lucaria wasn't interested in the conjury performed by those lowly tribes out in the wild. Theirs was a rational lot, driven to understand the intricacies of the power they wield. The faculty doubtless considered the blood star studies an insult, leading to a ban. And with no other option, proponents of these studies left to pursue their work in peace, settling on the secluded island to the far south where neither Liurnians or their Caelid neighbors would normally come across them. They probably still retain some contact with the sorcerers back home, especially if the Academy knows about the demi-human queen staff. But Site D is clearly a village for heretics who refuse to stick to Azza or Lizat's orthodoxy. Because of this, Site D seems to attract more than just sorcerers wanting to form a cult. On the cliff's southeast tower Orides Rise, one of many sorcerer towers across the lands between. These towers have an office at the top, perhaps for closer view of the stars, though the entirety of the building tends to be dedicated to the sorcerer's research. The obvious benefits of a tower is the safety and seclusion to study whatever the owner wishes without disruption, especially if what they're researching requires them to spend great time away from urban centers. In the case of this Orides, the astrologer has the books and tools to do all the studies one may wish, with even a hemicyclium behind the rise. However, that is probably not the reason for choosing this location. The name Orides is Latin for an unknown precious stone, which is most likely a reference to the meteors which landed down the road. In other words, Orides noticed the meteor shower and decided to move close by for personal study, which is reasonable if residing at neighboring Site D prior. Certainly, not all sorcerers left Raya Lucaria for heresy.
That's why.
Another example of a Liurnian colony lies up north on Altus Plateau. The Lux ruins sit upon a cliff overlooking the depression where the small lake stemming from the seething river accumulates. Part of the ruins even extend to the slope down at cliff's bottom. It is obvious that the village of Lux was established for easy access to the nearby water, and not just for the inhabitants' quality of life. For much like at Site D, we see demi-humans have since made the ruins their territory, attacking anyone who even tries to approach what is left. And ruling these savages is Gillica, another sorcerer queen casting the Academy's arts. This implies that Lux is another village with some specific purpose for choosing this location. Absent any other obvious clues, we can only assume that they wanted to trace the source of glintstone up Liurnia's river, choosing to monitor the outflow from Gelmir. This was their little project, similar to Ordina. Other Academy sorcerers seem to have crossed the enclosed sea and made landfall in the Cerulean coast. It is there on those southern shores at the center of the lands between that we encounter yet another demi-human queen, Mariga, loitering with her tribe. Among them are also swordsmen, apparently awarded their sword for possessing the intelligence and dexterity to wield it. This is because the blade is lined with minuscule Roglin stone, the string of shiny crystal resembling joint stars in clear reference to binary stars that orbit around each other in a single gravitational center point. The swordsmen swear upon receiving it that they will discover the ultimate truth of this unique art, which they express in their swordplay. The small and agile barbarians teleport around with clouds of dark muck, using the string of glintstone in concert to extend their blades. Such is their skill, they can apply the principle to people, binding enemies to a nexus in hand so as to telekinetically grab and throw them around. Even the starlight shards they collect showcases their dedication to astrology. Without a doubt, Mariga wished for her knights to help deepen the queen's knowledge of the stars, probably inheriting this idea of binary stars from the sorcerers who taught her the arts. Perhaps this Academy expedition had come just to investigate the Deathbird's graveyard, hoping to pilfer the secrets buried with astrologers long past. But with it was this idea of the primeval current, thereby bringing stars together as one would clay. The ancients practiced that concept with their glintstone hearts, and their descendants passed those same ideas onto the native savages they encountered. But from there, it was up to the demi-human swordsmen to shape their clay into powerful crystal arts. Nitrain expands on this, swordsmen among the demi-human tribe of the First Peak seeming to train themselves with local glintstone, and although the tribe benefits from having such skilled fencers to defend them, their gray whiskers and cataracts reveal the lifelong toll to reach this level. Meanwhile, the humans of the Academy continued building relations with Celia. Instructions for the more advanced Night Comet spell remain stored in town, sealed behind a barrier to highlight its importance. The utilization of comets in only this instance further suggests that Azza and the Corollos Conspectus had a unique effect on this sorcery's development. Both Celia and Raya Lucaria also share glintstone key technology for manipulating special barriers, each styled on their respective crest. Whoever came first, the two were becoming very close indeed. Combined with the number of students haunting the streets, plenty of Corollos and Twinsage, but only a few Olivinus, and one might think it was a takeover. While the Nox still had a key place in society, they were competing with the growing influence of this foreign institution, both in terms of its native and foreign human population. Granted, this outside influence might have been tolerated, because they were contributing novel ideas to Nokron's overarching goal still. Nevertheless, it added new wrinkles to Celian society. One of the darker byproducts of Kaled and Liurnia's mingling concerned their respective underworlds. Sorceries like Unseen Form, Unseen Blade, and even Night Shard are primarily wielded by Celia's ruthless assassins. These sorcerers use whatever means to slay their target, and thanks to Night's invisibility, they can appear like any other, unarmed, astral scholar. That might have been the most natural application of such sorcery, but the culture of assassins can only emerge if there is a demand for assassination. And in the case of Celia, their sorcerer assassins mainly hunted fellow sorcerers. Therefore, it is liable that such a culture emerged only after the Laskyar and Celia populations made contact. With Raya Lucaria training new generations of astrologers and quickly developing a political hierarchy for Liurnia, there was an explosion in potential targets for shady killings. Combined with Celia's location out on the remote fringes relative to the Academy, it is easy for sorcerers to discreetly arrange for the assassination away from Liurnian authorities. Put simply, the trade and travel relationship created an entire new market for the sorcery town. Countless agents prepared to kill a researcher's rival for the right price. This took them to other lands beyond Liurnia. As prime example, the Witchbane ruins in the Weeping Peninsula are named for currently sealing Selin in the basement. She isn't the first to be imprisoned down there, as the corpses of civilian conscripts rot inside other prisons, presumably locals captured and interrogated for information. The woman isn't even the first glintstone sorcerer victimized, as we see a ball of sorcerers rise from these witch-sealing ruins as a sentry defending the basement entrance. Clearly, someone has taken and experimented upon many a sorcerer, going so far as to craft marionettes to protect his hideout from discovery. And based on the corpse lying in the basement with Ambush Shard, a sorcery, which strikes from the unseen flank, that person was a Celian assassin. Their work apparently brings them as far out as the peninsula to hunt the sorcerers living in total seclusion. That was the nature of relations in a sequestered environment, not everyone getting along before eventually parting ways. Between Lux and Saidi, there is no denying that the Academy breeds many independent-minded and strong-willed individuals, making it impossible to keep the community from fracturing in all sorts of ways throughout its history. It was perhaps inevitable that sorcerers go off pursuing their own interests, especially considering that it was how their kind began. But just as Azza and Luzat were the mainstays throughout all of that history, the influx of new stargazers from Laskyar, Celia, and elsewhere kept Raya Lucaria from just petering out. Like the flowing stars, astrologers accepted the change while building a grand web of fate. No one can predict all its twists and turns, but a bird has to spread its wings. There are so many eggs for the cuckoo to plant in hopes that one hatch. Anything to soar higher toward that shining brilliance. But blinded by the light, this Icarus didn't realize that it was flying to the sun.
All right. And with that, that is finished. I'll be honest, not too much. It seems like a lot of the basic stuff is pretty much there. I do think there are probably some terms, though, that I'm probably leaning on, like how many indeeds show up. Yeah, we got like 10 indeeds. In 21 pages, we can cut down that number by half at least. Probably. Yeah, that's reasonable. In all likely. I didn't hear a lot of those. There was 4 in total. Yeah, these two are a little close, so we could probably cut it and move it on. More than likely. This one's definitely close. Okay, yeah. Shirley. Nope. No Shirleys, certainly. Only 4s. Oh, and a lot of them are backloaded. Oh yeah, we can work on that. Okay, yeah, so some terminology, it didn't immediately stick out to me, but there's definitely a case where we could do a little better on varying up the language here, spreading it out. Like do we need 4 assuredlys within what, like 5 pages? Like, that's a bit much. So we could definitely do more there. Definitely we could be doing more. And then, how about ultimate? This one's a little close, but it's not the worst. In fact, not bad. Yeah, I could do better here. I can cut down on a number of these for sure. I can cut down on 2 or 3 of these. They're so front loaded too. And then how do the doubts go? No doubt, no doubt, casting doubt, that's fine. Little doubt, a little too close though to casting doubt. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, doubtless, without a doubt. Okay, yeah. We don't need that many no doubts. We could vary it up or pick alternate words. Not even undoubtedly. That's, yeah. So that's one we can look at. Evidently. Do I want as added evidence and evidently in the same paragraph? I'd have to think about that one. Anyway, for a first draft, this definitely isn't that bad, but it's going to be definitely rough getting some of this language stuff done because there's just so much there. It felt like it was mostly pretty clear though, so I think we're actually in a very good spot. I was worried about how awkward it would be with Nox and stuff like that. So far it isn't. I might want to add up on stuff relevant to timeline. No, I think Nox, because I have to mention the trees growing into the ruins before the water flooding. I have to mention that, so that's not gonna be a problem. Okay, that's gonna be a future Loki problem. Probably for this weekend. Let's focus on trying to get this guy to do something besides shotgun. Oh. There we go. He just does one big attack, it looks like, for sure. Otherwise, he'll do the shotgun for the most part. Throwing problems at future Loki, as always. Future Loki's my bitch. What? Huh. Never punished. just banged my arm. That hurt. All right, let's stealth there. All right, so got that stuff relevant to Twin Sages and things. Whew. Yeah, it's always the same. It's always the same one, so I think it's safe to say that's supposed to be... I don't think that's Comet, right? Because Comet has little crystal bits on the end. I think that's probably just like whatever the strongest glintstone shard sorcery thing is. Loki, did you see the new Torrent skin? That I did. I was chuckling at the fact that Torrent seems to get a funeral steed skin. You know, just because of the Mikola connection. But in total, I'm like, man, I would love it if these things come with some sort of item description or something, but I get the feeling it's gonna be probably like Night Rain, and it's just gonna be like the name and that's it, which is gonna be a shame, because I'll literally take anything. I don't care if it literally just tells us that funeral steeds like to like munch on spirit raisins or some shit. Like, I'll take any crumbs at this point. I want my funeral steed lore. But yeah. All right, so I think that's all the screens I want to get today. Try to think if there's anything. Like, it was really just I wanted to confirm with the nobles there what kind they are. It looks like they are the quote-unquote Karian noble type, which is good to know. Good to know we have some moon nobles here. Yeah, because Mesmer and stuff is gonna... Yeah, I think when Mesmer's Crusade comes out, I'm going to probably shift the analysis from Liurnian Wars regarding the nobles and stuff over to there. And then that'll short up the Liurnian Wars section on that. I think that's how I'm going to handle that when Mesmer's Crusade eventually comes. But I think that's probably better to kind of just establish the concept of what they try to do to distinguish between the nobles and stuff like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, do we see any Erd Tree nobles outside of that context? Like, are they literally just there? By there, I mean, of course, at the castle. Like, I know they're definitely not, like, walking around or anything, right? I don't remember there being any instances of them doing their typical wandering around the world or whatever. I don't remember seeing any in Mesmer's castle. Because it's all the Shadows guys, right? They're the ones that they use for the basic enemies, the fodder. Right. So I want to say that all this we have here is the only example we get of nobles here. Yeah, obviously we know we got our spoops. Now I think about it, the only other time I think we see them with this invisibility thing is at Three Sisters, right? Yeah, might be. Okay, yeah. Didn't get a piece of that Golden Order research since they've been locked in. Yeah, that's the obvious implication. This predates, of course, fundamentalism, so we don't see them with the triple crossbows. We only see normal crossbows. So perfumers have done their perfuming thing, but they haven't done they haven't gotten to the fundamentalism gig, so we don't get any of the fancy mechanisms yet. No fancy mechanics. Yeah. They also do it at the King's Realm runes or whatever. Oh, right, because, yeah. Yeah, I think it's just the default then for the guys when they do their teleport stuff. Because I think it's also true at the Moonfolk ruins. The nobles there also do it. Yeah, so yeah, I think Mesmer's Crusade is where I'll be talking about the establishing those concepts beforehand. But yeah, I think how I would frame it is I will talk about the two scenarios where either it is Erdtree nobles who have actually successfully immersed themselves very deeply in sorcery for the purposes of you know, learning glintstone and all that stuff, and the alternative being, of course, moon nobles who end up dressing like Erdtree nobility due to some cultural flirtations. And at least in this case, it seems probably more the it's probably more so that these are supposed to be Erdtree nobles because we have the pages and stuff. Because I can't think of a single instance where we have pages with these moon nobles at King's Realm ruins, or yeah, we don't see them at King's Realm ruins. We don't see them at what's it called, at Moonlight Altar. Yeah, there's only the fundamentalist high page at the sorcery tower, but there's no like noble associated with him or anything like that, right? Because it's completely separate for the research stuff. Yeah, I think that's it. But I can't think of any other example where we have like these teleporty boys possibly being used at. Unless there's like an area I'm forgetting that they exist at. And I don't think so. I mean, there's more, you know, yeah, there's no pages at Mirage Tower either, right? That'd be the closest I can think of. Because there's the whole Mirage teleporting thing going. Yeah, but it's inside Karya Manor, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. It's, you have the normal nobles that are patrolling here. Let me see if I got this right. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we got ourselves some Lazuli. What a shocker. Lazuli and Karya Manor. Say it ain't so. We have, of course, 2 normal pages. There's like a 3rd one around here, I think. Is he back here? I don't know. I could have swore there was a 3rd guy somewhere. Oh, yeah, here he is. Waiting in the wings. Yeah, so you have 3 pages here. I guess you could interpret that as possibly Karya adopting the page system. But I think considering the fact they also include the nobles right here in the same area, tells me it's probably just supposed to be that. Ah, damn, we want to do this with a normal tree. Yeah, then this guy, yeah, we have the other noble here, and as I recall, this guy's not a teleporter. I'll do a normal speed here. Let's see, AI can be so annoying with this, but come on. Come on. Boop. Yeah, no, he's normal. He's not even doing the runaway thing that the other guys like to do. That's probably a good way to mark their behaviors if they do the runaway thing. I didn't even think about that because I'm so used to them just doing the teleport if you're close instead of running away. Yeah. So yeah, these are all normal Erdtree nobles, 100%. Not always sorcerers. Right. And then it's when we get out here. We have the one guy who, if I recall correctly, he's a teleporter. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he is off the top of my head. Where is he? Where's our guy guarding Celavis's way? Where's our guy doing his due diligence? I think it's here. It's one of these buildings. Really, I could have sworn it was on the other side. It's not over here, is it? Lol. Adula, don't do this to me. What? I forget, did someone say that you could actually fight Adula here second, even if you quote unquote kill him at a Moonlight Altar? Like, does he like not die at Moonlight Altar? He just does the teleport thing like he does here, or do they do it both ways and they just didn't think that anyone and their mother would ever have not killed him? Because to be fair, they'd probably be right. Okay, yeah, it's here. There he is. I'm like, somewhere around here. Yeah, so this guy, I'm pretty sure is a teleporter. And then we have a few teleporty guys back here. Yeah, there's these three. The Three Stooges. Yeah, pretty sure there's no others beside them. And then it's more normal guys. Yeah, here. I think there might be a whole group, but I could be misremembering. Look, is there a way to access the Realm of Shadow without interacting with the cocoon? Yes, because we know that the for example, Godwin's forces get in. And we also know Radahn's and people have also made their way inside at points. It's unclear if this is something where, you explicitly need Marika to, like, open a gateway or something and let you in. Or if it's something where, like say, the Death Knights found their own way in, right? Like, oh, you know, Death Knights, they just found a way. Because they've obviously, they've been doing their thing since, well, probably early on. Maybe even pre-shattering. But yeah, I can't think of... I can't really think of a means besides... Well, okay, I guess I shouldn't say that. Because, you know, Mikola was able to do it by seemingly tracing Omen blood to, like, its source, right? So I guess, theoretically, others might be able to do that. Though, again, I haven't done the analysis to figure out if it's, like, something specific to, like, Mikola's power set. from how like the way he's born cursed and stuff, because you know there's indications there he's got a deep spirituality connection there, so he might have been in a unique position to do that. But yeah, it's at least theoretically possible, I guess, for others to be able to create their own ways. It's not clear if that's how the established forces we know of did it, because Radon, again, he could always ask his mother, and for the Death Knights, I guess they could also do that before America goes cray-cray. Granted, the window would be a little tight, I would say. Anyway, so that's the best we got there. All right, so I'm gonna go check on the dog real quick because she seems to want to go outside and stuff like that, and then we'll be switching gears. So enjoy this in the meantime. All right, I am back. You know what that means. We are now switching gears. There we go. You guys take over the stream. Good luck, guys. All right. We will now gotta close this. That's not what we wanted. That's not what I wanted. There we go. New dock. There we are. Okay. Let's get a pickup in here. There we go. Oh wait, Doggo wants me to answer her again, so I'll be right back there. We're just gonna leave this up, then we're getting to it. There we go. All right. Perfect. I gotta move this to the other. There we are. I don't care about what Copilot wants. Go away. BB timeline. There we are. I'll make things simple. Crazy how it's a top 3 from Soft track. It's not even a boss one. I mean, I think From Software is very good with their BGMs when they do them. It's just they're mostly known for their boss themes because a lot of times they don't do, you know, non-boss music. Granted, again, I think they're, you know, just like ambient BGMs have become overall a lot better than their boss themes because I think the Bloodborneification of the OSTs over the years have been to a great detriment to the game's overall soundtrack quality. But you know, you only heard that from me. Anyway, let me check on the dog because she's barking again. She doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know if she wants to go in or out or in or out. All right, she's finally accepted her fate. The DLC area themes are all amazing. What, for Elden Ring? I'll be honest, I don't remember them. It's been a while since I've listened to them. I remember Limgraves and Liurnias and others for sure. Oh my god, now she's back. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. There we go. Oh, I only have the music off for these streams. I played it with the music on when I actually did the DLC. There we go. Yes, yes, I see you, giant doggo. Oh, oopsie. So. Oh, this is gonna be a little awkward. Actually, no. I can't, because I can just look at this and then. Yeah, okay, it's fine. Okay, never mind. We're good. We're good. Okay. So let's start. World forms from the primordial ooze blood. How do we start with that? Oh, so okay, yeah, fair enough. That shouldn't. There we go. I think we can put this down for a second while I focus on this. So let's see. World forms the primordial ooze, blood, flora and fauna are created. Beasts evolve into humans. Humans establish civilization. Investigates researches blood, right? Okay, yeah, I'm not crazy. So let's see. Are created, beasts evolve into humans, uses up civilization, is researcher's blood. How do we put this? Is researcher's blood. Let's see. Beasts are research subjects. Or now let's just say this, citizens become beasts and hunt begins. A lot of blood in BB. Yeah, we're gonna see the blank researcher's blood is gonna probably show up a few times. Gonna happen a little bit. Might be you might say the central thrust of the game. By the way, which software site app to use for this? This is called Microsoft Office Word. I've never used anything else. It's pretty basic. There we go. All right. This I might want to... Might want to refresh my own memory on some of this. Depends on how detailed we want to get in terms of the process. Actually, you know what? Because of the nature of what we have here, let us focus instead on just the basics, and then we can get into the more details. So let's see. Let's see, is researches blood. Obviously we have is collapses. So researches blood. Becomes kin. Dumero ill. Let's see. Actually no, let's see. Tumerians establish kingdom. Include that one in there. Dumero ill is established with Queen Yarnum. Obviously not the Queen Yarnum we're familiar with, but what do you think the choir is singing to Odin? What he wants for dinner? They're not singing to Odin. They're actually singing to the Great Ones, which are taking the which they're using as specifically they're talking to the slug, right? And then there's the whole talk about like, the silver and the abyss waters and all that stuff. I'll be honest, I really like this song. We've never been able to get the official lyric list to really be extra refined, but from what we've been able to sound out and do so, it's a really cool. Actually, I think I still have. Let me double check. Yeah, actually, I have this still. Yeah, so. There we go. So this is what you're hearing. Yeah, this is, yeah, there we go. It's hard to figure out which one exactly. Yeah, I think it's this one, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard when you don't know where they started, because I don't know what part of the song we're on. But anyway, point is, it's very straight. Cursed, O slug, we are infected with a cursed beast. Cursed, O father, lead us, we are infected to the silver waters in darkness. O mother of blood, our redemption. Come forth and save your mistress. Go to the sea, we are infected. Into the dark waters. Cursed and silver waters, we are infected, and silver waters. Oh blood, oh blood. Yeah, so basically it's just like a prayer out. Which again makes sense in the context of Mensis. I think this is a really good theme to use for Yahar Ghul, especially if you get there like early and you want some really subtle foreshadowing. But it's really cool. I like it. Again, I get why Miyazaki wants kind of that like foreign alien feel with the OSTs being nonsense language and stuff like that, right? But I do like that in Bloodborne they go with actual, Latin stuff to embrace like the Christian influence. It's cool. It's always cool when you have stuff like this. It makes you wonder what we would have gotten for Elden Ring, right? Like what lyrics, what masterful lyrics did we have before Miyazaki told them to make it all nonsense? There we go. All right, so established with Queen Yarnum. Again, some of these will probably become subhead, so we're gonna make that there. Dumaru. I don't know if researches is the right word to use here. Let's see. Dumaru. Praise for godhood, we'll say. Well, actually, you know what? We'll say researches godhood. And then, I mean, it's still around, right? So we don't have to worry about anything like that there. Tumeru and Iz become buried underground. In fact, you know what? There we go. Loran is established. Become buried underground. Land becomes is buried underground and becomes a desert. Land becomes a desert. There we go. Loran is established in the desert. Loran digs underground and makes contact with Thumru. Loran establishes trade with Thumru Il. We'll say that, just keep it consistent. Thumru Il, Loran researches blood. Again, citizens become beasts and hunt begins. Loran adds beast ashes to blood for patients. Spreads ash blood disease. Ash blood epidemic starts in Loran. And this stuff will organize better in the future, but this is just trying to get the basics out here. Beast hunt begins. Loran adds beast ashes to blood for patients. Beast, dark beast epidemic starts in Loran. Loran produces silver beasts. Loran makes contact with Flora and establishes searching. Yeah, let's do this. Loran begins researches blood babies. That's something we can put into that as well. Performs rituals for blood babies. Infant great ones to offer. Offer Flora. Beasts. Beasts. Consume Loran. Actually, no, we also have to. Loran establishes Lower Loran. There we go. That makes it better. Lower Loran. Loran researches blood. Thumeru. Yeah, like I said, it depends on how detailed we want to get on some of this. Beast consume Loran. Yeah, I'm gonna make the BGM a little, just slightly, you know, just a little. There we go. Just a little slightly quieter, just in case. Okay. Beast consume Loran. Loran. Actually, you know, Beast overtake Loran population and it collapses. Dumerians convert lower Loran into Doom. Yep. Annex Loran ruins and convert them into Doom. What else do we want to do here? Probably include, yeah, because it's still at depth 2, right? Actually, no, you know what? This is the way to do it. This is, I think, the best way to talk about the history. Yeah. After the hunter becomes a slug, does he have normal slug intelligence, or will it more like be moon presence level of smart? We become a great one. So there's a case to be made that if you become an infant great one, you're still going to be a baby, so you're not going to necessarily be like, you're kind of being reborn and you're reprocessing not just your thinking but how to think, right? So there's a question of, okay, how much does that affect what your already existing knowledge is and your memories? Or is that something you have to regain over time as you try to get yourself used to your new higher elevated level of thinking, right? So you're probably not going to be like slug level of intelligence, but it's hard to tell like how much more intelligent you really are going to be. Like, for example, Murgo, which is not our scenario, right? But Murgo is an infant great one, and of course Murgo more or less still acts like a baby. Murgo, of course, also has incredible crazy powers because of Murgo's thinking, but Murgo still has a baby's level of thought. Is that the level we're at, or do we are all our prior memories and thinkings and stuff like that still there, and so we are still more rational than, say, Murgo? Again, that's sort of the question you can have there. Did you mention when blood was born? Of course, it can't be born. Blood is blood. It is the ether of this universe. It is the fundamental element, the prime mover. All right, so Tumerians annex Loran ruins and convert them into tombs. Yeah. Because it goes all the way down there, yeah. No, and it collapses. Actually, no, I've got a better idea. We'll do it like this. Yeah, I think this is how to do it, I think. Right? So all this stuff on depth 4. No, I was right the first time, because depth 4 is where we would be still. Okay, yeah. Beasts overtake Loran population, it collapses. Yeah, the best way to put this then into tomb, Thumeru ill expands to, oh, actually no, we'll do that. Loran ruins become buried, and land becomes temperate. A temperate forest. We'll say that. We'll say for now, and desert subsides. Because I don't want to get too, like, pigeonholed into how this happens. Loran ruins become, and desert subsides. Thumerians add on. No, wait, Thumerians. Tumeru ill. Yeah, let's do it. Thumerians expand and establish. Expand. Dungeon. Above Tumeru ill. Above Thumeru ill. New dungeon discovers spawns of Loran and begin offering them to Great Ones. Great One. Curse. New dungeon with Jin for blasphemy. New dungeon for blasphemy. Let's see that there. Keepers and watchdogs of the old lords attempt to appease Great Ones. Do I want to mention the Royal Guard here at this point? No, I think it's fine. Not too much I think we can mention here. Depth 3, right? There we go. Okay, yeah. Oh, wonderful. Depth 3. In fact, actually, yeah, this is a good way to put it. Continues expanding. Interesting choice, but okay, whatever. Not my business. Actually, maybe... For now, I want to keep it all the same. I can't remember how we did in the Dark Souls one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Depth 3. No, we don't have to mention the burial, I don't think. Thumerians continue to expand. And establish Lower Tumru. Yeah, we'll say that. New city, quote unquote. Let's see. Kane clan rebels and is exiled for Kane clan rebels and is exiled for attempts to for attempted coup. Kane clan establishes castle on hill above ground. Gainhurst. Nothing really else I think happens of note here, right? Oh no, yeah. Lower Domaru is expanded outward. Expand upward above Domaru. Yeah. That should be a good way to clarify. Lower is expanded outward into lower intertombs. Lower intertombs. I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole all the poisons and stuff like that until we get to that point. Next is north into lower intertombs. I think it's central Domaru, right? The Marians continue expanding upward and outward. Expands outward and establishes lower here. There we go. Word and establishes central Domaru and intertombs. Two, right? Right. Maybe something like this, right? Thumerians continue expanding upward to upper Domaru. Oh yes, I don't remember the exact terminology used for everything, so I might be misremembering this again. Let me double check. No. Central Domaru. Yeah, it's Central Domaru. Okay, just Domaru. Okay. Okay. Central Domaru. There we go. Depth 1. Depth 0. I need to stop doing that. So let's see. Queen. Dumerians establish Yarnum as surface colony. There we go. Depth 0. Yarnumites interact with mingle with outsiders. Yeah. Oh. There we go. Yarnum splits into Old Yarnum and Yahar Ghul. Surface colony. This is probably gonna be a something, but forbidden graveyard for humans and great ones established in Forbidden Woods. Surface colony in River Valley. Oh wait, outsiders. Yarnum splits into Old Yarnum and Yahar Ghul. Old Yarnum continues. Yeah, Old Yarnum. Gradually forgets old faith. Yahar Ghul, clergy. I don't know if I need to get that one. Go that far. Old yarn gradually forgets old faith with generations mixed with outsiders. Does the blood thing. Oh yeah, old yarnamites hunt beasts with stakes. Beasts gradually. Human, let's see, yarnamites become old yarnamites become more human, and beasts gradually. I think it applies to both, probably. Yarnamites become more human, and beasts gradually dwindle in. Gradually dwindle. On beasts. I should mention here, on beasts with stakes or drive them out of town. Are we here yet? I don't know if we're here yet. No, because we still have Gurman, right? Gurman prays to end beasthood, and a star respawns with meteorite. Gurman. There we go. Gurman forges. What? Gurman and hunter of hunters and foreign friend forge weapons. Well, with me, you're right to do so. Gurman for okay. Gurman and foreign friend forge weapons with meteoric iron and establish workshop. Gurman and foreign friend begin hunting beasts in Yarnum. That he does. Okay. I think that sets up the most important circumstances. We could also mention stuff like with Canehurst. I've not mentioned some of the Canehurst things. But we can go back and add that in later. Let's now just focus on getting the basic stuff I have written here. So let's get that. So let's see. Let's see. But you know what? No, we're fine. Let's divide this into this era now. So yeah. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, that's how we want to do it. I keep making this mistake. I really shouldn't. Let's see. Okay, Willem excavates Yarnum graves in Forbidden Woods. Forgive me, chat. This is a little... There we go. Little awkward for me. There we go. Let's focus on one at a time, you know? we go. There we go. Now I can see it all. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Willem discovers. What's NA short for? Not applicable. Willem discovers Doomer ruins. Willem. I'll just say this. Bergenworth is established. Like I said, we can go with the more greater details moving forward. Bergenworth is established. Bergenworth researches blood. Bergenworth suffers beast scourge. German hired hunts beasts in Bergenworth. Willem bans blood experiments for research. Institutes first blood ban for experiments. Bergenworth take field trip to Fishing Hamlet. Fishing Hamlet I also have to include in the larger timeline. We can't forget that either. So that would also probably have to go in depth 0, as it were. Rom Koss enlightens makes contact with Rom makes contact with Koss and becomes Great One. Bergenworth researches Rom. Some students become Rom's kin. Willem institutes second blood ban for experiments. Lawrence and followers make exodus. Let's just put this. Leave Bergenworth for Yarnum. I will just say leave Bergenworth. Germanin. Yeah, Garmin, Lawrence, and followers leave. Okay, there we go. Great Burger. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. Surface 2. There we go. So. Lauren and followers establish residence in Old Yarnum. Blood administration facility. Let's see. There we go. Let's see. Lawrence and followers breeding Yarnumites for experimentation. Old Yarnum suffers a beast scourge. And Yarnum. Foreign friend becomes hunter of hunter, or other becomes first hunter of hunters. Actually, I think we should just, let's see. Yeah, let's do that. Lawrence establishes relations with Greenhurst Castle. Yeah, I haven't even mentioned Hemwick. That's got to be mentioned as well. Old hunters suffer beast scourge. Or beast, yeah, that makes sense. First hunter of hunters. Ludwig finds holy moonlight sword in his prospection, I guess. Ludwig hunts beasts and forms. The holy blades. I can't remember. All right, I'm gonna have to double check this now. Can't remember if it's in Healing Church or Holy Blades, but I know I have it there. Yeah, okay. Holy Blades. Holy Blade. That's not it. Yeah, okay, that's... Yeah, so Holy Blades start after... Yeah, okay. So really... Like, yes, he becomes the first Holy Blade, but the organization in full doesn't really start. Hunts beasts in the name of God. Or workshop in the name of God. Odin becomes Great One and is buried in Tomb of Odin. Healing. Blood ministration. Let's just say Healing Church is established. There we go. Just God. The beautiful God that are known as the stars. God spoke to him. Or, well, more like God danced for him. Clearly showed him exactly what he needed to know. It communicated with him. 100% honestly, totally. It was 100% not a prank. Not a prank, bro. Healing Church is established. Cathedral Ward is established. Central Yarnum is built to facilitate. Let's see. Odin is buried in Tomb of Odin, and Odin Chapel is established. Central Yarnum is Central Yarnum is built to facilitate new cathedral ward. Becomes new expanded as Central Yarnum. All right, something like that should be fine for now. It might be useful for my Odin thing to mention this is probably when the Hemwick stuff also transitioned, right? So let's see, Odin, Tomb of Odin expanded into church, cemetery, church, cemetery, and bodies ignored. Church, cemetery for test subjects, we'll say. Odin, chapel. It's kind of hard because it's one of those things where it's kind of like, you know, this just kind of loses importance over time as we realize things just aren't going our way. Odin ignores healing, church, and church. Odin chapel loses influence. Cathedral to Central Yarnum. Healing, church, workshop is established to facilitate. Is established. Let's see. Ludwig forms Holy Blades as first church hunter. There we go. We haven't mentioned Maria in this entire thing with the Canehurst stuff. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of missing stuff we have to factor in here. In the name of God, pass me that ammo. Just get it from your blood, you know, just suck out that silver from your blood. Healing Church establishes relations with Hemwick. Healing Church sends bodies for cremation to Hemwick. Healing Church mixes beast ash in blood treatment. Yeah, adds diseased ash to blood treatment. Old Yarnum suffers beast scourge. Eventually becomes Old Yarnum suffers beast scourge. A lot of this needs to definitely be worked on. I can already see the problems we have to work on. So Old Yarnum suffers beast scourge. Oh no, suffers ash blood epidemic. Auto workshop is established. Yeah. This would be this grand cathedral is built, and upper cathedral is built. Upper cathedral ward becomes secret research hall. For Lawrence and followers. I might need a term for that. Maybe just call them the Bergenworth traders or something. But I might need a term for that to make that simpler. But anyway, up. Auto establishes workshop. Healing costs becomes pregnant with child. Healing church spies report costs. I don't think we need to go that detailed. Child and is discovered by spies. I don't know if discovered's the word. Child. You're the dad, congrats. You have a beautiful baby boy. Cost becomes pregnant with child and spies. Healing church spies. Share news of Cos's pregnancy. Lawrence followers and yeah, okay. Okay, so Lawrence followers and I guess we would have to say and Garmin's and old hunters. Yeah, we'll say that. And old hunters, that's the best way to put it. Massacre fishing hamlet. Garmin kills boss and retrieves baby from corpse. Maria throws away sword and abandons the hunt. Let's see. Healing church. Honestly, I don't even need to mention the research hall. Upper Cathedral Ward becomes headquarters would be the best way to put it. Also, Old Yarnum Blood Administration Facility converted into church. Mary throws away sword and abandons the hunt. Healing Church takes over. I also need to mention that. Excuse me, it's Lady Maria. Lady Maria, Maria-sama. Let's see. Healing Church. Researches. Orphan of Cause. Studies. Orphan of Cause. Yeah, okay. All experiments. Yeah, okay. Otto Maria commits suicide and is buried at German's at Old Workshop. Buried at Old Workshop. German creates doll in memory of Maria. Let's see. Almost forgot. Ghost of Kos creates the Hunter's Nightmare. There we go. God, there's a lot here. God, there's so much here. Auto Workshop expands and becomes powder kegs. Orphanage is established in Upper Cathedral Ward. Church hunters suffer beast epidemic. Lawrence and German commune, make contact with Flora. Contact with Flora. Flora creates the hunter's dream. Lawrence and imprisons German. That's probably the best way to put it. And then Lawrence searches for there we go. So Lawrence searches for blood baby in Tomorrow. Ruins. Lawrence becomes first cleric beast. Oh, 1 second, chat. Something happened. 1 second. All right. Lawrence becomes first cleric beast, bloodletting beast, healing, church, searches for Lawrence, beheads, and beheads bloodletting beast. Bloodletting beast continues. Search for blood baby without head. Rom Rom enters the Mara ruins in search of Ebrietus. We didn't even mention Ebrietus earlier, obviously. That's weird how that works. Yeah, we're gonna have to mix this up again. Lawrence's head made holy, made new holy medium of the Grand Cathedral. Now we get to the fun part. God, there's too much. All right, I think we need to reset these. Right. No. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's more manageable now. There we go. So let's see. Healing, church, suffers, beast, epidemic. Brador kills cleric, friend. Kills cleric, beast, friend. Brador's friend becomes cleric, beast. What's it? There we go. Brador. I don't really need to go into the details of him wearing his friend's skin and shit like that. Ludwig. Enters Hintertomb ruins and goes mad. With entourage. Or with entourage. Do steady. Arcane. For let's say this for research. Ludwig and entourage go mad and are killed. All right. I'm not even gonna mention the Hunter's Nightmare timeline stuff because it's like, oh, their souls are brought back. Like, that's just, maybe we'll add it after the fact when everything else is done. But like, for now, I don't need the timeline for that. I think we'll just focus on this stuff here. Hunter's Nightmare. Oh, what I should mention though. It's the Hunter's Dream and imprisons. Laura creates the doll to serve as attendant to the Hunter's Dream. The Hunter's Dream as attendant. Yeah, we'll just say as attendant here. Hunter's Nightmare is discovered. Healing Church sends Brador into Hunter. Brador enters. How do I want to put this? Yeah, Brador enters Nightmare to hunt Invader. See, getting too close to healing Church's secret. Healing Church discovers the Hunter's. Yes, I hear you, doggo. I hear you, doggo. Get over here if you're gonna be like that. Let's see. Orphans. Orphans of Upper Cathedral Ward discover is bring back his chalice from prospection. Yeah, we'll just say from prospection. Orphans form the choir. Overthrow old leaders and form the choir. There's a lot we can do here. Mikolash and others form the School of Mensis. Ash, Old Yarnum suffers. Yeah, Old Yarnum suffers beast epidemic. It's a little bit awkward to talk about because it's like, it's like directly relevant to, of course, what happens with the Ashblood stuff. Logarius forms the executioners. Canehurst begins hunting hunters. Various forms the executioners. Executioner Queen Guild hunts Queen Yarnum. The dog is not cooperating at all. 1 second. Okay, so she went a little wild. She must have seen something because she was really barking at it. There's a 20-year-old MMO, which I love, and the devs started to remake the mobs in the first 3 maps, and most of them look ass compared to the OG versions. Many such cases. It happens for sure. Let's see. With Murgo, School of Mensis encounters Murgo during prospection. Yeah, that'll be good. I haven't mentioned the prospectors becoming a formal thing either with the Holy Blades. God, there's so much. I'll be honest, I'm tempted to make a separate. Some of this stuff you could subdivide into more eras. Let's just keep it all as one, and we can always divide it later. So let's see. School of Mentis encounters Murgo during prospection. How do we want to put this? Choir encounters, performs ritual with his chalice and encounters Ebrietus and Rum. We'll just put it as that for now. I could probably expand on that more. I didn't even mention there. Let's see. Fire encounters Ebrietus. School of Mensis performs ritual to beckon Flora. Um, Margot's wet nurse. Margot's wet nurse. Answers. Oh god, this is okay. So red moon appears and causes Ace overtake old Yarnum. Margot's wet nurse answers. Gulash. There we go. Mikolash performs ritual with Margot, Tubek, and Flora. Margot's wet nurse answers Mikolash, and there's Mikolash's prayer. Nightmare of Mensis is created. Brain of Mensis is created. I know I'm forgetting something. There's something else that happens with that. Goes through, does the ritual, all that. Mensis is in the creation and stuff like that happens. Oh, goodness me. This one's rough. There's something else that happens with that, right? Because it's the nightmare with Mikolash. Oh, of course. I'm so dumb. Another great one answers Mikolash's prayer first. Nightmare of Mensis is created. Brain of Mensis is created. Great one becomes Margot's wet nurse in Nightmare Cathedral. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Healing church orders old Yarnum burned. Powder kegs are killed in fire. Rom performs ritual and oh, there's another thing I forgot, even more important than that. Okay, there we go. Braid of Mensis is created. Nightmare of Mensis is created. Bergen, Worth, lecture, building, transplanted. To gap in the nightmare. Let's see. Rom performs ritual and creates Moonside Lake in place of lecture building. Healing church. Prohibits bans access to forbidden woods. Lower. Lower church. Oh, I haven't even mentioned that with the old Yarnum. Lower church to old Yarnum. Old Yarnum sealed in lower church. Choir secretly recruits forbidden village for experiments. Yep. We can't forget this one. Logarius leads massacre of Painhurst Castle. Logarius becomes martyr to seal Queen Annalise. Yep. I hear you, doggo. I don't know, chat. I think she's at her limit. She's been good for so much of the stream, so I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. We're nowhere near complete, but it does get the basics out of the way for some of the stuff we need. But there's a lot, like Hemwick and Canehurst events need to be filled in. Yeah, like all of that needs to be filled in. Fishing Hamlet stuff needs to be filled in. So like there's a lot of events that still need to get sorted and included here. So for experiments, let's see. Yeah, I don't even mention the whole Yahar Ghul Mensis and Alliance here. Like there is so, even I didn't realize, like there is so much. Like the more I look at this, I'm like, oh my god, there's like so much that I should be mentioning here before for certain events to be happening, right? Like this is a fine simplification in the image, but like for this timeline, like it's like, god damn, there's a lot actually here that we can mention in order. In that case, we'll simplify it to just this. School of Mensis. Actually, no, you know what? Yahar Ghul and School of Mensis perform experiments into artificial great ones. Experiment to research artificial corpse great ones. Okay, there we go. Healing church orders old central Yarnum abandoned. Central Yarnum suffers beast epidemic. Yarnum abandoned. Mob rebels. And then the events of the game happen, right? So all right, there is a lot here. Like this is just 5 pages. I think we might be able to even double it. I could bet if we increase it enough. Hey doggo, what are you doing over there? I don't know if you guys can hear her, but she's making the most adorable noises. Yes, 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 I hear you, doggo. I hear you, I hear you. Anyway, so looking at this, it's a good start. It's a good basics, but like stuff on the Chalice dungeons, I think definitely could use some more expansion on some of the details and things like that. And I didn't realize, but like there is so much to include in terms of just the stuff with the healing church, and then that's not even counting, you know, the Hemwick stuff, the Maria stuff. Like I have dramatically dramatically left out quite a bit here. Granted, it's always good to know that I was just going through these basics. I didn't notice anything where I was like, oh no, wait, that I got completely mixed up. I was like, no, okay, yeah, this is all still pretty consistent. The only thing would probably be I'd probably want to maybe split up some of these sections. Like I feel like just the night of the old Yarnum's burning with Mikolash and everything, I feel like just that singular night should be its own section, just because there is so much that is happening in that specific period. Like I feel like it's worth being its own section here. Like I don't even know, we have it as surface 3, right? So like, so if there's 3 and then yeah, so like this surface 4, yeah, surface 5, like this alone, because there's still more I can add to this. Like there's definitely more. Like I haven't even mentioned the stuff with what's his face, Parl. Like I haven't mentioned Parl, haven't mentioned Jura. Jura might go in surface 5 actually. I think I have to double check the exact timing of when Jura decides to stay. I can't remember if it's supposed to happen, if it's more likely to happen during or after the actual incident takes place. Either way, there's a lot here. I'm actually impressed. And the fact that I can divide it into like 5 surfaces to go with 5 depths, that's actually kind of funny. But yeah, Hemwick stuff, Canehurst stuff, Fishing Hamlet stuff. Gotta get more details on some of the Yarnum things also. Yahar Ghul stuff, like Yahar Ghul's Thumerian relation should be included into that early history stuff. You know, I should still be probably mention that at least in broad strokes. Yes, I know. Yeah, I should mention that the I didn't even mention, because I talked about the surface colony, but I didn't even mention the independence movement. Yeah, just do that. Yarnum might rebel and establish independence. There we go. So like, yeah, there's stuff. There's lots of stuff here. But hey, it's a good start to like organize this stuff. I wanted to do this because, again, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but someone has been emailing me asking about timeline stuff. I was thinking about doing this anyway, and, you know, this seemed like a good excuse to actually get it done. There's a lot more here, though. This is just the beginning. There is so much more that we can do and work with here. I don't know, like, how often I'm gonna go through and, like, do this for just a stream, but, like, I think this is a good way for us to have, like, chill streams every now and then, so I guess we'll do that until later. For now, I have to go take care of this crazy doggo. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me on this. Again, astrologers looking pretty good. I'm going to see what I can do. Hopefully over the weekend, I can wrap this all up and maybe even have the thesis ready to post on Monday. We will see. There's going to be a lot of reference images for this one. So I get the feeling I might get really bogged down in that, even if I do get it like super speeded and get it all like done, the actual drafting done by tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see what I do. Until then, thank you guys so much. Bye-bye. Later.